Yo, 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 and welcome back to Creeps and Crimes
Podcast.
I'm Taylor.
I'm Morgan. Happy Thursday and happy episode 242.
242, part 2 of Franke, Hildebrandt, Devil Moms, whatever. So glad
we're here and
that
not
this
last
is happening. And sorry this is late. You saw it on our Instagram story. I'm going to be putting this out around noon on Thursday, I hope. But
that means 3.
Yeah. Noon to me is noon is when we start the export. You know what I mean? And by export I mean into the editing app.
Yep.
So I'm not gonna hardcore edit this. It's gonna just be like a one-off. Hopefully we can get this done like really quickly in terms of not having to stop a lot. We wrote these notes. They're so real and raw as to what we're actually
feeling.
Yeah, what's going on. So like, and we finalized the script literally an hour ago because I've been dead. If you can't tell in my voice, obviously, I got hit so hard. Sunday, we go out on a boat for Mother's Day with my in-laws. We're on the boat. Up until then, I'm totally fine. I'm Snapchatting Morgan, my cute outfit.
Yeah, I was like, oh, slay. I tried that top on in Target.
Yeah, literally, like all the things. Like we're doing fine. Everything's good. I was in church that morning with my mom. I went to go to the brunch with my family. I mean, we were literally like living a life, okay? And then we get on the boat and everything's fine. And the second we step off the boat, me and Logan are like, we have horrible headaches. Like, oh my God, we have horrible headaches. And it's an older boat. So at first I was like, do we have CO2 poisoning? Like, I'm not joking. Like, literally, I was Googling it. Like, what the hell is going on? We are going to dinner with his family. And by the time we sit down at dinner, me and Logan are both like pressure in the head. I'm getting worse and worse. He's healing and doing better. I take a Tylenol. It does nothing for me. I'm getting chills, I'm getting aches, and I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, I have the flu, I have the plague, I have COVID, like what is going on? So we leave dinner early, we drive back up to Knoxville. I'm going down so hard and fast that I was thinking like it had to be the pollen, it had to be the pollen. I take 2 Benadryl, I sleep for 30 hours. I do not wake up
literally
until 6 o'clock on Monday. I text Morgan, I'm like, ain't no way.
She sleeps for 30 hours in a 24-hour period.
I did. Well, then I slept another 12 hours because I went to bed at like 8:30 on Monday night.
She was sending me like Morgan texts. Like,
literally.
My half asleep, like I'm having to like make out the words, but I understood it so easily.
And so much business was going down.
Oh yeah, so much shit was going down.
So much. And Morgan's literally like battling out there.
I'm gonna fucking fight everyone.
Literally, she's out there just like absolutely just murdering it. She's killing everyone. It was crazy. How was your Mother's Day weekend, graduation weekend?
Yeah, well, we're definitely the CEOs of being older sisters.
Oh, the best older sisters in the world.
I got hammered.
Yeah, slay. Oh, the pictures, I had to screenshot them.
All Marshall wanted from us was to come, and then, this is like, when I say bumfuck West Virginia,
Mountain Mama.
I mean, where the hell was I?
Mm-hmm.
Craziest, smallest little town. The college was cute, but I'm like, why is this out here?
What's going on? Yeah.
And so we went out, but all Marshall wanted from us was his older siblings to come and hop around the couple bars that are there.
Okay, slay.
So that's
Say
what we
less.
did.
Yeah.
And they were pouring heavy.
And
like
all
it was
the mounts kids
prohibition.
pulled up. Literally, everyone.
We all pulled up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. My sister flew in from Denver with her nephew. Mitchell, and my brother, flew in with Sarah, his wife, and my other nephew. Mm-hmm. And then me and Aaron pulled up with Ollie in tow. Mm-hmm. And my mom and dad and Marshall. So we just had this big extravaganza.
Reunion, yeah.
And they were pouring heavy. Like, I'm serious. They were acting like it was a prohibition.
Oh, no, it really was.
I was... I
haven't seen Morgan like that in so long.
I had 2 like lavender gin drinks at,
you were trying to keep it classy.
At this restaurant. It was like in a boutique hotel.
Oh,
it was
okay,
like the only nice place called the Oxley House, and it was in a boutique hotel, and it was cute. Yeah, it was really cute.
I love the boutique hotel.
So they had some good drinks. And then we went over to a brewery, and I had like, me with a fruity beer. I drink half of it.
Yeah.
That's it. Go over to another bar, and I had 1 gin and tonic, and I'm
she's getting drunk again just thinking about it.
Just thinking about it. I'm hammered.
Oh, God.
And then Aaron and my dad, we rode with my father. There's no heat in the car. It was 41 degrees that morning in Pennsylvania. We had to leave at 7 a.m.
Oh, my God.
We drove to West Virginia. It was a 2-hour drive. I couldn't feel my toes.
No.
My dad's like, yep, that's the worst part. Sometimes when I get up for work in the morning.
I'm like, Buggy, can we fix it?
He's like, not till the 27th. Getting the part on the 27th.
Yep.
He's like, when I go to it's hard to get to work in the morning without my defroster.
I'd say so, buddy.
And I'm like, yeah, like, I mean, how do you even see? The car's got a memory. It knows where to go. Mm-hmm. That's what he says. And so you could see her breath in there.
Oh, horrible.
It was fucking freezing. But on our way back, I was so drunk, and Aaron and my dad were just... Aaron was at that point too.
Oh yeah.
They were yapping, hooting, and hollering.
I cannot.
I was like,
I would have jumped out of the moving car.
I'm freezing.
Yeah, I'm freezing. I'm drunk. I'm annoyed, and I got to go.
But no, it was really good. It was good. That was the first time all of us were together since my wedding.
Yeah, since your wedding. Yeah, that's what I was.
So
thinking.
that was really nice.
That's really fun. And then, did you guys do anything special for Mother's Day? But BB.
No, well, I mean, we got her a new lounge chair.
Oh, and that's all BB
deck.
wants.
That's all BB wants. She likes to get her tan
and she got time
on.
with all of her people. I about said all her girls.
Yeah, that was her gift.
Yeah. Well, Phoebe graduated from high school on Friday. That is the
So
last of the hooker
proud.
girls in the Cleveland City school system. It's done. So we got to see Phoebe graduate, and it was kind of sad because it was like, you know, I didn't cry because it was so fucking hot in that gym. I thought my grandma was like, I'm going to die. And I was like, please don't, because like your threat is actually real. So don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that to all of us. Okay.
Don't say
Phoebe
that.
will be so embarrassed. You can't. Like, you literally can't do that. We did the whole thing, whole shabam at the high school. We come back home. We had late night pizza. Phoebe accidentally ripped out all of her eyelashes, had a mental breakdown.
Oh, no.
It was a whole thing.
Before her party.
Oh, yeah, it was rough. And then Saturday morning, we woke up. We had Phoebe's graduation party / Mother's Day get together for the Mamas / Logan's 30th birthday.
Yes.
And then we spent that evening, just like with my family, we went out to our favorite Mexican restaurant in Cleveland. All Logan, of course, wanted for his 30th birthday was margs and chips and queso. So that's exactly what we did, and we had a really good time. But there were two really big things that happened on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. My FOMO.
Number one is the earthquake.
I have earthquake FOMO. I can't even talk about it.
No, she's so torn up. But look,
I'm so mad.
This
and
is
I'm
crazy.
like, yeah, like, and Taylor's like, I felt it. I'm like, fuck off. No,
Fuck
you
off,
didn't.
you stupid
The
bitch.
next headlines are like, felt in Atlanta. I'm like, fuck,
she did feel
She's not even lying right now.
I wish she was lying. No, so we're laying in bed. It's like 9:04, okay? And we're laying in bed. Me and Logan had just woken up. And when we go down to Cleveland, we stay at the River House. And my parents' bedroom at the River House my parents are literally so stupid bougie. I wish they would have been bougie when I lived with them, but they weren't, you know? So they have those beds that it's like a 2-in-1 bed, so it's like two fulls that makes a king or whatever the fuck it is. Each side can like go up or go down, and they vibrate, and they got lights on them and shit. So me and Logan love spending the night down there because we get to sleep in this awesome bed.
Yeah.
And we love it so much because he gets to sleep how he wants to sleep.
It's a nice bed.
And Morgan loves the bed too. Morgan's always asking, can we sleep with that bed?
I do be liking that bed.
I do love that bed. I think everybody in our friend group has slept in this bed. Me and Logan are laying in it, and like I said, one of the key things that we love about it is it's got that vibrator in it. So like, and he can have the vibrator on his bed, I can have the vibrator on my bed, and it shakes you to sleep. It's phenomenal. That morning, we had just woken up. I had gotten up before Logan. I literally thought the dude was dead because I'm never up before him. I get up, I open up all the windows, I lift up my side of the bed. He's still laying down, and we're both on our phones. We're not really talking. Everything shakes. And the first thing I think naturally is, oh, he turned on the vibrator on his side of the bed. So the first thing I do is stick my hand over on his mattress. It's not moving. So I'm like, wait, is that mine? So I feel mine. Nothing. And then I'm looking up and the fan's shaking. So I'm like, oh shit, that was an earthquake. I said, Logan, did you just feel that earthquake? And he goes, that was not an earthquake. You just turned on your vibrator. And I was like, no, I didn't. That was an earthquake, 100%. So he runs over to the window to look at the river, and he's like, the river's moving. I'm like, well, the river's always moving, you know? That's just kind of thing that happens.
It's got some ripples in it.
Yeah, he's like, oh my God, it's got waves. I'm like, there was waves all day yesterday, bro, because it was windy as hell. And about that time, Morgan texts me, and I'm like, no, dude, I literally fucking felt it. She's like, yeah, you fucking
I was so mad. Aaron's like, tell her we felt it all the way here in West Virginia. I was like, how'd she fucking feel it, Aaron? I was so mad.
Literally. No, so.
But no, everyone, South Carolina, North Carolina.
Charlotte, Atlanta, like, everyone felt it.
Huge.
And it happened in Greenback, Tennessee. It was a 4.4
4.1. They had a
4.1?
3.5, then they raised it to a 4.1. But I
Yeah.
also saw reports of a 5.1, so I'm confused.
I think it was finally they were like, all right, 4-1, period. Either way, it happened. I felt it. And
I had FOMO.
But I didn't realize how strong it hit Knoxville until like people in my neighborhood started posting like their ring camera footage. I'm like, the cats are dead. Like, they're terrible. I said, this 1800s house is on its fucking back, bitch.
Yeah.
We need to call
the
someone.
ring camera footage was crazy. You could hear it
It sounds like a
rumbling.
sonic boom. Now, we have a friend that works 911 out in Blount County, which is actually like closest to where the earthquake was, because it was technically in Greenback, Tennessee. Bitch, she's getting calls. Was that the sonic boom? Is there something going on at Oak Ridge?
What's going on out there?
So anyways, it was just an earthquake. Now, that was the first crazy thing that happened on Saturday. Oh, another thing is Logan has never felt an earthquake. Granted, there have been multiple since I have lived in Knoxville.
Yeah.
And I have felt every single
The one
one.
that I remember the most was in our apartment.
And yeah, in 2020.
I think
or 2019.
2018.
I was working in football.
It was like
because,
summertime, I think.
Yeah, I worked in football because I felt it in the offices.
I just remember being ripped to oblivion.
Oh my
and
God, I
the
couldn't
bar
imagine
cart
being that high.
going like this, rattle, rattle, rattle.
Rattle, rattle,
and I'm
rattle.
like, what
The fuck?
And I think it was probably you, like, did y'all feel that?
Yeah.
We're like,
Oh, I was like Paul Revere that day whenever that first earthquake happened. I was like, dude, I'm running through the office. That was an earthquake. Like, oh my God.
I was like, I don't know where I am. Jump timelines.
Logan had never ever felt an earthquake in his entire life. Morgan missed out on the earthquake though. She's so mad.
I'm so mad. It's not even funny. I wish I was here for that. Like,
I know.
Are you kidding me?
If it makes you feel any better, it definitely wasn't as strong as it was up here in Cleveland. It felt like he had turned on the vibrating
then
bed.
they released the map, and I was like, if she was at the River House, she was closer than Knoxville, people.
I was. I was in Charleston.
And then I was even more mad.
Yeah, I was. I felt good.
like, how
She
she
even sent me like a sideways text message, like, actually, you're even closer.
I was fucking pissed.
She's ridiculous. And she never even said that she was pissed. I just knew. I fucking knew.
I was like, what do you mean you felt? I was telling her, like, oh my God, Chuck on the cat. She's like, I know. I felt it.
I felt
I'm
the
like,
fucking thing.
what? What do you mean?
You thought I was going to be in the out-of-town club.
We're both out of town. Like, what do you mean I'm the only one that's out here drinking moonshine in
Morgan's
the middle of
fucked up in
nowhere?
fucking
There's
nowhere.
no service. I'm on SOS signal.
that
And you're
is
like,
so
yeah,
funny.
I felt it.
Stupid.
Whatever. I'll get the
So,
next one.
I'm glad we're finally here. I've been so stressed out about it.
Yeah, me too. I'm so glad to talk shit on these people.
Yeah.
So,
Thank God.
if you're driving,
Throw that shit. Wait, that's not my line.
throw that shit on cruise control.
If you got a glass, pour that shit up.
And let's get creepy.
All right, before we get into this, we need to just blanket trigger warning for this entire episode. There is a lot. I mean, it's disturbing. It's all about child abuse in detail, but we're not going into.
We will read a couple journal entries at the end, but we'll remind you right before that.
Yeah,
to skip if
That's
you'd
like
like.
the worst of the worst, other than this beginning part of like the details of, the condition of the children. Just trigger warning for this entire thing. It's fucking upsetting. It's enraging, and it makes you think, like, how can someone do this to a child, much less their own child? Another human at the, very least.
Right. It's fucking sick.
Okay, so here we go. It's 10:46 a.m. on Wednesday, August 30th, 2023, when a 12-year-old little boy knocks on his neighbor's door in Ivins, Utah. When no one answers in the first few seconds, the little boy begins to walk away. Then the door opens and you can hear an older man's voice call out to him, saying yes. The boy turns around and begins approaching the man slowly, saying, "Hey, I was wondering if you could do 2 favors." The boy pauses then, and the man says, "Well, what are they?" The boy answers, "If you could take me to the nearest police station," and before continuing on, he stops, correcting himself, saying, "Well, actually, that one's just fine." The man begins walking towards the boy and gestures for him to sit at the 2 chairs that are nearby the front door on the patio, asking, "What's going on, son? Have a seat there." "It's personal business," the young boy says as he walks over to the chairs looking at the man. The man reassures him again in a more comforting and fatherly tone, saying, "Have a seat," as he makes his way to sit in the other chair beside the boy, asking, "What's your name?" The boy says RF, using his initials because, again, he's a minor. From a distance, the boy looks to be dressed nice, but now the man can see that he's right up on him, that RF is wearing a button-down blue collared shirt with the long sleeves rolled up. It was ragged, and what looked like, and would later be proven to be, bloodstains on its arm. He had on tan blue striped shorts that almost looked like boxers or swim trunks that are extremely wide on his clearly incredibly skinny legs. And he's also wearing black mid-rise dress socks that are semi-covering what looks like duct tape and clear wrap around the boy's ankles with no shoes. The man says, "R, how did you get here?" The boy begins saying, I, but then the video cuts out because it's a Ring camera, so on the front door, and it will only record for a certain amount of time after the doorbell is rang. It's not on a continuous loop unless you have that setting to be on. Now, what we will learn later is that he tells the man that he was able to escape from a house down the street where he and his sister had been held captive in handcuffs and bindings. And upon further inspection by the couple, which the boy really just implicitly trusted at this point, they saw that he had duct tape, plastic, and huge raw sores on his wrist and ankles. He was extremely emaciated. The next thing that we see on the camera is now the homeowner's wife outside with the two of them. She is standing in front of the little boy who is still seated and almost frantically drinking the water from the bottle that the woman had just given him. She continues to help the boy drink and eat the food and water that she had given to him as the older man, who I assume is her husband, makes the infamous 911 call that we have pretty much all heard at this point. Both the man and the woman are becoming more and more emotional and anxious as this call goes on with the 911 dispatcher. But instead of us just recounting that 911 call for you, we are going to play it for you right now because this was released by the Washington County, Utah's Attorney's Office in 2024.
And I'm on the address of your emergency. Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
Okay. Is your door locked?
No, I'm sitting outside with him on the front patio.
Okay, cool.
And he asked us to call the police.
What's
So
your
he's
name?
very afraid. What's your last name? And he's 12 years old. Yes.
Okay, and can you ask him his date of birth?
Can you tell me your birthday?
Okay, and are the neighbors out of their home, or is anybody looking for them that you can see?
No. Our homes are far enough away. I'm not sure. How did you get out of the house?
Porch. He went out.
He says you just left through the porch at the neighbor's house. Her name is Jodi Hildebrandt, and she lives 2 doors up the street.
Out here in Cayenne, the houses are far apart.
Yeah, out here in Cayenne, the houses are far apart, so he walked just under a block to get to our house. He rang my doorbell and asked me to call the police.
Does he seem to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
I don't think so, but he's very thirsty, and
Need an ambulance?
I don't think he needs an ambulance. I'll let the cops decide that, but his ankles are taped up, and he won't tell us why.
Okay.
But he has duct tape around each ankle. Yeah, there's sores around them. I think there's a good chance he's been... Oh, and he has them around his ankles. I mean, his wrists as well. Okay, this boy has been... This kid has obviously been... I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Okay. Let's get the paramedics headed over that way, okay?
Oh, that's a good idea, too.
Let's see. Has he told you where his mom or dad are?
Haven't asked him that. Yeah. You know where your mommy and...
I really got these things.
Yeah, I'm sure that doesn't matter, son. Do you know where your mom and dad are?
Well, actually, I don't know where my mom is, but I do know where my dad is. He's not anywhere here. Really, nowhere here.
Okay. No, he doesn't seem to. He says he knows where his mom is, but...
He doesn't know where his dad is.
That's correct.
I do know where my dad is. Is his mom home? He doesn't live.
He just says he doesn't live around here.
Okay. Is his mom in this area?
Is your mom around here? Have you seen her lately?
No,
He doesn't know where she is right now.
Does he know his mom's name?
What's your mom's name? Ruby Franke? Ruby Franke is his mom's name.
Okay. How do you spell the last name? Franke.
Franke.
Okay. And does she live in the area?
No, I'm not sure where she lives. He's trying to help us, but he's...
That's okay. We don't want to stress him out too much. The officers will go over all these questions with him anyway. I just want to stay on the phone with you until we get some help there, okay?
You can tell that this poor older man that's making this 911 call is in shock and just overcome with emotion. He's confused. Like, he genuinely
is in disbelief that anything like this could happen.
Right. Like, there's no, you can, I mean, I could imagine that, like, if this happened to me, I'd be like, there's literally no way that this is happening to me right now. It is devastating. And at 11:01 a.m., the first officer arrives at the scene, and it's Sergeant Nick Tobler with the Santa Clara Ivans Police Department. By the time he pulls up, an ambulance is already backed into the driveway of this neighbor's house that's calling 911, assessing RF and putting him into the back of their rig. Now, thinking fast, Sergeant Tobler grabs his camera out of his car and he begins taking photos of RF and his injuries before the ambulance can, like, patch them all up and take him to the hospital to be treated. And as he is taking these photos, Detective Jessica Bate with the same police department arrives and sees RF for the first time. She says in that Hulu documentary, which again is called Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Franke, and again is in addition to 150 different 200 plus sources that we did, it's our primary source for all of this because it's got the unseen footage for the first time in it, which is why it's such an incredible source. And we 10 out of 10 recommend that you go watch this if this is something that you're interested in learning more about. But she says in the Hulu documentary that she was just so shocked at how emaciated this little boy was, explaining that she could literally see his tendons in his ankle, front and back, clearly because of just how emaciated and how wounded the areas were.
Oh, it makes me ill.
He tells the officers, RF tells the officers and paramedics that he has been tied up and had handcuffs on him in Jodi's house before saying, "I have a younger sister in the home," explaining that he hadn't seen her in months, but he had heard her in the home, but they had been kept completely separate. Knowing that this was a high-risk situation with one or more children still living in the home or being held captive in the home, I should say, Detective Jessica Bate put together a SWAT team essentially to perform a tactical sweep of the home. She and Sergeant Tobler get several other officers to rush to the scene, and they're armed and ready. They put on their vests and all the things, and they go up to Jodi's front door, bang on it, and say, "Police officers, open up." And after about a minute, the door unlocks and partially opens, and it's a huge door. So when I say it partially opens, for that door, it was partially open, but if this was a regular door, she'd have that thing halfway open. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she's got this door partially opened, and standing on the other side is none other than Jodi Hildebrandt. She's on the phone with it held up near her face on speaker, and they call her by name and tell her to step outside the home. And she's like, I have my attorney on the phone, and they say, "That's great, step out of the home."
Get the
and
fuck
that
out
is
of my
literally
way.
a quote. "That's great, step out of the house." love that. That's the type of
Me
energy
too.
I'm looking
Me
for
too.
in a situation like this. She says, no, I'm not going to step out of the house. So they tell her again. She begins to back away from them. So the officers like lunge at her, grab her, and rip her out of the house. Thank God. And that officer that pulled her out of the house stays with her while the other officers just start sweeping into the home. Inside, the officers open and go through every single door and closet on each of the levels. And some of them are like working the upper levels. The other ones are going down. The ones that are going down, they get down to this like dungeon area. And when I say dungeon area, it's quite literally a bunker. It is like, look up pictures of it. I'm going to try to have some on our Instagram for you, but like literally a bunker. They find this like giant door, safe door. Like if you just saw it, you'd think it was like
An artillery room.
like an artillery room, like a little closet. But they're like, no, this has to be a room back here because it's so blocked off and like the way that the layout of the home was. So they can't get it open. It's locked. They go back up to upstairs where Jodi is being held outside with that other police officer, and they're like, yo, what's the code to the safe? She's like, I don't know what the code is. Shut the hell up.
Right.
Shut the hell up. So they're like, all right, whatever. Meanwhile, other officers are still working on one of the upper levels of the home, and they find this like semi-hidden, and when I say hidden, it was just kind of like at the back room that has this attached closet and bathroom. So they begin into the bathroom, and they swing open one of the doors that was just off to the right side, and it's the closet. And it's dark in there, so they can't really see at first, but with a little light that was illuminating from underneath the closet unit and inside the room from the bathroom, they catch the silhouette of a person sitting in the middle of the floor. Once they put their flashlights facing that way, they see a small child with their legs crisscrossed. It's kind of scary, like, you know, it literally is almost written out of a horror movie because it's that just not right and just dark.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I hope you guys understand what I'm saying.
And also keep in mind that the SWAT is like sweeping the house, so guns are up.
Yeah, they've got like big guns up with, and their flashlights that I'm talking about are on the end of their guns.
Right.
So they're looking with their guns everywhere that they're going. Their guns / flashlights shine on this little child sitting crisscross applesauce in this dark room. They see that this child is wearing a red Henley shirt that's like super loose fitting, some blue jeans that are very baggy on this child. Their head is completely shaved down to a buzz cut. The child is extremely frail and skinny and just terrified, like horrified. And at first, police actually thought this child was a little boy, only to find out later that this was actually EF, the youngest child and daughter of the Frankies. Sergeant Tobler was with the officer that found the little girl, EF, and they both begin speaking really calmly and softly. They put their guns down. They're moving slowly towards the little girl, and they're like, hey, are you okay? Sergeant Tobler introduces himself before asking the child for their name, and the little girl wouldn't or couldn't reply to them. Tobler gets down on the little girl's level, sitting on the floor by the doorway, not blocking her in, not, in a threatening way, and he's asking if she's okay and if she's scared, and the little girl, EF, kind of shakes her head, gesturing yes, that she's scared. Tobler reassures her, saying, look, I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to make sure you're okay, and I get it if you're scared. I would be too. Tobler sends the other officer to continue clearing the rest of the rooms on this level, and they get the little girl like a drink. They sit it beside her. She kind of backs up a little bit. She's now up against the closet unit, and Tobler stays with her. He talks about this in that Hulu documentary, just about how choked up he was and how he was really taking this situation personally, because who could do this to these small young children? And meanwhile, about this time, it had to be around 12:30, almost 1 in the afternoon at this point. Kevin Franke is sitting at home in his townhome alone in Springville, having no idea what's going on. And his phone begins to ring.
Wait, before you get into him, I do want to note here, because I feel like the Utah police pissed me off a lot during the rest of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
But they
up with these kids,
not the agents, but the police officers that responded to this situation and how they handled it with these children
was amazing. And you can see in the body cam footage that's shown on the documentary how emotional they were about it. And they I swear, if they could have gotten a closed room with no cameras, no mics in it, with Jodi and Ruby at that point, it would have been on, because they were just heartbroken and devastated. And their fast response to all of this really was the best thing. And honestly, like, that's the best that we could ask for in all of it, because that's what the children were seeing and a part of. And they are so traumatized. Like, we don't need to add any more insult to injury. Thank God that they were on their P's and Q's.
Yeah, for sure.
So again, like, as this is going on, Kevin has no idea. He's in his own little closed off, excommunicated world in Springville in his townhome, and his phone starts to ring. So he looks down at his phone screen and he's shocked to see that his wife's name and picture is staring back at him. It's Ruby calling him for the first time in over a year, because if you'll remember in part 1, it was July of 2022 that Chad and Kevin were kicked out of the home and excommunicated. So this is August 2023. This is over a year later. He grabs the phone and immediately answers, overcome with emotion. And she, like, pretty much cuts him off because he's like, Ruby, oh my God. And she just speaks over him and says, I have some explaining to do. What? Again, he has no idea what's going on. She then gives him this quick rundown of the situation from her fucked up, skewed point of view, saying that R and E, the two youngest, were, quote, demonically possessed. And she knew this for a fact because they had confessed this to her. Continuing on, that R had, quote, gotten out of the home and gotten to the police. And she can only imagine the lies that they are telling them right now, before telling Kevin that this was his chance. This is your one chance to redeem yourself and get your family back. You need to go to the Ivans police station and you need to get our kids and bring them home to Springville.
Did we ever find out if Jodi called Ruby at that moment, or if the attorney did?
I think Jodi called Ruby. I don't think it's ever been, like, explicitly said, but I'm pretty positive she had at least texted her.
Yeah.
Because Ruby is not at the house. Ruby is nowhere to be found at this point.
Right.
We have no idea where she is. And I don't think we ever actually do find out where she was.
I don't think so either. And I also wonder if, like, the attorney on the line was Ruby.
Well,
Were they talking?
That part.
Like, I have
because, like, how would Jodi have known to have her attorney on the line?
Right. Well,
unless she just saw the commotion.
Took her a minute to open the door.
Yeah,
so.
That could have been it. So anyways, she's like, this is the way you get your family back. You can redeem yourself. You need to go get our kids. You need to rescue them from the police station, take them back to our home in Springville, and I'll see you there. And so he's like, say less.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this.
I've been waiting for this call. I've been waiting for my chance to prove to you who I am, which we'll get into why he feels this way in a little bit. So he jumps in his car, wasting no time, and begins that nearly 4-hour drive down to Ivans. Now, back at Jodi's house, there's two things going on. One, they still have no idea where Ruby is. So they at this point called the Springville Police Department, and they send units to the Frankie's house in Springville to search for her and the other children. And secondly, the other officers that were sweeping the dungeon area, unable to get, Jodi to choke up the safe door code, are waiting on their supervisor to come. So their supervisor gets there at this point, and the supervisor's like, fuck it, let's just try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it works. Like, what?
Thank God.
What? This is your doomsday bunker, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Would have had to, like, blow the door down.
Yeah,
or, like, get a locksmith.
Get a locksmith out there or something like that.
And who's to say that Jodi maybe would have found the time to send somebody, get in there, clean shit out?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. They have no idea if there's second entrances in there, or if they're going to be in danger. Like, what if there's bombs and shit in there? Like, this bitch is crazy. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 works. They get the door open, and inside they find essentially like a torture room. There's handcuffs, rope, medical dressings like gauze and stuff like that, duct tape, and a mixture of cayenne pepper powder and honey paste that they had been putting on the children's wounds, which RF had actually told the police and paramedics about when they were treating him, because they were like, what is this stuff all over you? Because it was all over his wounds. And he's like, oh, they put it on my wounds. And it was to burn them. Mm-hmm. Like,
there's nothing holistic about putting pepper.
No.
A cayenne pepper paste on an open wound.
And honey is like, so you want to get infected? There you go.
Yeah.
It's just like people with autoimmune diseases can't even eat honey.
Honey is probably in the pepper powder just to make it sticky to stay.
Exactly. which was enough proof for the police at this point to arrest Jodi Hildebrandt on site. They don't need any more proof at this point. Now, back in Springville, the search for Ruby and the other children is still on. They bust down the door to the Franke's house and they find that no one is there. And it actually looks as if the house has been completely packed up, like they were moving, but it's like in disarray. It literally looks like someone that's like halfway through a move. You know what I mean? The neighbors, as police are busting down the door, SWAT team style, come out and they start talking to the police and they're like, no, the older two children, Sherry and Chad, live outside of the home. Sherry's in college. Chad lives in an apartment near the university nearby. And that Kevin, their dad, has been excommunicated, so they have no idea where he is. And the two middle children that they're mainly worried about at this point, A and J, so the middle daughters, are at a friend of Ruby's house that was just down the road. So police go to this friend of Ruby's house. They find the two middle girls there and they are physically unharmed. They look healthy. And I say physically unharmed because like mentally and emotionally, they are very much harmed. And so they're fine. Either way, they take them into custody as well. But at this point, around the same time, Ruby just pulls up and walks into Jodi's house in Ivins. Out of nowhere, just pulls up and walks in. And she is immediately arrested, but did not open her mouth once. Not a question about her kids. Where were they? If they were okay? How were they? Where Jodi was? If Jodi is okay? Nothing. Just this blank, evil stare on her face. And at this point, it's 5:50 p.m. still on August 30th, 2023, and Kevin Franke arrives at the Santa Clara Ivins Police Department. He walks up to the front desk, confident as fuck, gives them his ID, and he's like, I'm here to pick up my kids.
They're like, sit the fuck down.
And they're like, oh, great, come this way, straight to an interrogation room. And in there is Detective Jessica Bate. She sits him down and she begins questioning him, explaining what they found, the condition of his children, what was going on, and asking him, like, at first they're interrogating him thinking that he's a suspect. And it's very clear very quickly that he is in complete shock and denial. Kevin tells Detective Bate that he hasn't seen or spoken to his wife or their 6 children in over a year, which immediately tells her and the rest of the officers in the room that he can't be a suspect because this guy truly has no idea what's going on and like is also kind of maybe brainwashed and like in his own world. Yeah. Also, she was just so confused thinking like, this is so crazy because like, how does this happen? I just want to know what happened, how we got here. And this guy's like got his guard up and is incredibly emotional and clearly confused and like, he can't help me at all. And Kevin says in the Hulu documentary that he was very suspicious, nervous, and terrified because in his mind, quote, they, the police, were the wolves wanting to tear my family apart. So he was afraid to do anything that would point them towards Ruby, end quote. Which goes to show just how truly brainwashed this guy was. He truly believed in Ruby when she told him that their kids were possessed. He believed in Ruby and possession to that point and that their family had been under attack wholeheartedly that he didn't even question it, you know? And at this point, the officers are like, okay, well then let's start this over, dude. And they start telling him everything. They're like, this is how we found your son. He's emaciated. And in the documentary, in the like footage from this, Kevin's like, what's emaciated? And they're like, unable to sustain life. Malnourished. And he's like shocked, like truly is like and he actually says to them, this sounds like a made up story because he had no idea who the real Jodi was. This woman that he had let into his home, the woman that he had let sleep with his wife, the truth behind the woman that he had let take control over himself and his entire family. He had no idea about the truth of Jodi's past. So let's go back in time to fully understand what actually was going on behind the lens.
That was good. That was a great transition. As we discussed in part 1, Jodi's childhood was relatively normal for those in a strict Mormon household. She was one of 7 kids, the youngest of those 7, and typical for this time period, the kids weren't allowed to express their emotions. She was a star basketball player at her high school, carrying that athletic ability into her college years. However, it wasn't until she got to college that therapy for her eating disorder started to crack open that perfect childhood life. One thing that Jodi was able to do with this was to grow to appreciate the importance of therapy, open communication, and become good at what she wanted to do. She flourished as a student while being a single mother to 2 children, and pretty quickly was able to launch as a businesswoman in the Mormon community with connections. And she created what many thought to be the perfect community. However, things were more sinister than people thought. Probably not the first person to experience Jodi's evil side, but the first that we can track chronologically is her niece, Jodi Hildebrandt, who identifies with they, them pronouns. They did an interview with Law and Crime, and I'll be pulling my information directly from what Jodi has alleged. Nothing is proven, but my guess is it's probably fucking true.
Yeah, like I won't put anything past Jodi Hildebrandt.
And I want to be clear that the following information is alleged abuse. However, I want to note how brave and incredible Jodi is to speak about a family member and their own horrors that they endured by providing a victim impact statement at Jodi's sentencing.
Of course.
So they spoke up for other children. You know what I mean? Like
and that's like so
against
brave
your own
because
family too.
For you to be able to have the courage to come and speak out against this psychopath, and what you guys are about to learn happened to Jodi at the hands of Jodi and also the rest of their family. I don't believe that it's fake. You know, you can't convince me that it's fake in some made up fucking story.
Yeah. And Jodi also has their own YouTube channel where they have been talking about more and more of their past with Aunt Jodi. So if you did want to check that out, just search Jodi Hildebrandt on YouTube.
It'll pop up.
When Jodi was 16 years old, they were left in the care of their Aunt Jodi. At the time, Jodi was living in Corona, California, and they go to Utah for their grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. While there, they get into a fight with their mom, and this was typical behavior for Jodi. Even they'll say that in such a strict family, they were kind of viewed as the wrecking ball. Jodi was a pretty angry teen, and so this fight with their mom was a breaking point for their parents. That night, while at their grandparents' house, there was a knock on their door, and they were told that your parents had left, and you were no longer going to be living with them. Their time was first mostly at their grandparents' house and Aunt Jodi's on the weekend, just to give the grandparents a break. However, it pretty quickly switched to full-time at Aunt Jodi's. This was pre-Connections era, so before Jodi had created her company, but was working as an independent therapist at the time. The first thing Jodi did was pull Jodi out of school. They would then be required to sit for 12 hours a day at Jodi's office, writing out their sins over and over again on a piece of paper.
Jesus.
Jodi would then make Jodi get on their hands and knees as Jodi reread Jodi's sins back to them.
Oh my God.
Jodi says that Jodi believes in what she calls isolation manipulation, where she strips you of everything, your identity, credibility, anything that you have ever thought good things about yourself, whether that's your self-worth or something that you did, something that you were proud of. Jodi would preach that this was a distraction to the core issue and everything you say is a lie. She believes that everything you say is manipulation. You're always lying, you're destroying everyone's lives. And so according to Jodi, this was something Jodi was practicing with them. It was psychological abuse.
Period.
Jodi convinced Jodi that for the sake of everyone around them, Jodi needed to be duct taped in the mouth so that they couldn't speak these lies of manipulation.
Oh my God.
It pretty quickly turned physical. Jodi recounts that Jodi had hit them so hard in the back that they fell to the ground and that they were also forced to sleep outside. This is Utah. And it was winter. Jodi forced her 16-year-old niece to sleep in the snow. Anyone that would ask about this form of treatment, punishment for misbehavior, was told that Jodi was in the Sub-Zero mummy sleeping bag. It's meant to withstand this kind of cold and wet weather. All therapists are doing it.
Oh my God.
However, Jodi says that this was absolute bullshit. That this was as basic as you can get, a quote from Jodi, a $20 sleeping bag from Walmart.
Those are not even like comfortable to sleep in inside the house. You're still
in a
freezing.
tent in summertime.
Into the fort that you built in your playroom with the heat on.
Yeah.
You're still freezing.
This incident actually led Jodi to go to the police and report their aunt making them sleep outside in the middle of winter in Utah. However, the police trusted Jodi's justification, which was that she was just preparing Jodi for outdoor wilderness therapy. and the police failed them. There were numerous times that Jesse ran away to the neighbors. There was one neighbor in particular that told Jesse they didn't want to call Jodi, but because they were a minor, they needed to at least let their guardian know that they were there. And this neighbor also told Jodi at that time that she did not think that anything she was doing to Jesse was right and that it was sick.
Oh, I know that neighbor was like, I've been waiting to fucking say this.
However, they didn't fight hard enough for Jesse and they ended up returning home. The police were involved multiple times. However, even though they seemed like they were willing and able to help Jesse's situation, and they were giving Jesse hope too. Like Jesse would say that I'd go to the police and they were so kind to me and they promised me that they would help me in this situation. But then they would go and talk to Aunt Jodi and they do a complete 180-degree shift and release Jesse back into Jodi's custody.
If that doesn't show you just how manipulative Jodi is, it's unbelievable. But at the same time, the police did this. We'll watch the police do the same exact thing here in a little bit.
There's a lot of parallels to Jesse's abuse and the Franke children.
Yes.
There was at one point where Jesse was begging the police to just arrest them, saying, please don't send me back, take me to jail. At one point, Jesse said that they were literally like, I will rob a store right now if that's what it takes to put me in jail. And the cop kind of just like laughed and was like, that's not how it works.
No, it's 100% how it works.
There were numerous escape attempts on Jesse's behalf. They talked about how they were running and it felt like something straight out of a nightmare. Like, you know how when you're running, you can just feel someone coming down your back, like they're on your trail. And Jesse said every single time they escaped out of that house, they felt like Aunt Jodi was on their neck.
Yeah.
So there were numerous escape attempts on Jesse's behalf, and finally they managed to escape Jodi and her abuse. However, it was not an easy task. I think the biggest takeaway from Jesse's story is the parallels between them and the Franke children. The removal of the bed, the evidence of the kids being bound by duct tape and other materials, the manipulation tactics, the failure of the neighbors and the police to do everything in their power to protect the children. Jesse has a lot of interviews with different news networks as well as their own videos on YouTube, and I encourage you to go listen to some because I'm still just fucking speechless when it comes to how this was overlooked so often throughout this time period, a course of 20 years in the state of Utah. And this was partially due to the fact of Utah's child neglect laws. So the state of Utah has some of the most interesting child neglect laws that you would ever hear.
This
is because of their landmark law, the free range parenting law.
What?
In 2018, Utah became the first state in the country to pass this free-range parenting law, which changed the state's definition of child neglect. According to the Salt Lake Tribune, this law added a section to state code that stated, quote, a child whose basic needs are met and who is of sufficient age and maturity can engage in independent activities without it being considered child neglect, like walking, running, or biking to and from school, or even being home alone. Now, while this is great for a lot of the parents that are like, be back by dark without getting in trouble.
Well, and it's also great for the situation with was it a Tennessee or a Georgia mom that the kid was walking to school or walking down the road to their grandma's house, grandma's house.
They wanted to charge her.
And they were like trying to arrest this bitch, and she was like, he's literally 13 years old.
Yeah, it protects parents in that aspect of letting your child off a
because
leash.
that's the way that they can make the law sound good is by putting the goo-goo side of it.
Right.
But,
however, they don't specify what a sufficient age is, and they only greenlit those unattended activities so long as the kids were adequately fed, clothed, and cared for. This addition to the law really ties up DCFS's hands in a lot of different situations. Because unless a child left alone was hurt or hungry, there was nothing that authorities could really do about situations. And it was such an open-ended law. This did and still does hurt a lot of children in the state of Utah. It removes the protection that children in other states have.
Yeah, the language in it's just way too loose. Like, imagine if me and you were negotiating a contract and we got some crazy ass loose shit like this. I'd be
Matter of fact, I saw the contract, the actual law with like the addendums and and it was like the red line. I was like, I said to Taylor, I said, this looks like a network contract and I cannot read that.
And you know what? Our manager and agents writing all over this. Too loose, tighten it up. Yep.
When Jodi started Connections, it was so successful because she knew how to target the weak. Brandon Patrick from the Hulu documentary says that she would, quote, hit on a pain point for people in order to turn it into a profit. Brandon and Jodi had a business professional relationship.
And if you guys don't remember who Brandon is, we literally talked about him so much in part one, but he was like the local therapist, the neighbor. He talked about Happy Valley and all the things.
Yes. Yeah, we reference him a lot. In 2010, Brandon Patrick started shadowing Jodi at her place of work. And pretty quickly, he was able to realize that something was off about her practice, about her methodology, about her treatment to patients, all of it. The first red flag for Brandon was that Jodi refused to pay him. But he was just shadowing, so he let it slide. However, it was becoming pretty obvious to Brandon that Jodi had a defined hatred towards men. All men, including, in his head, probably him. Her influence on these couples in the church and their relationship was toxic. More and more sessions were becoming focused on the men, solely on the men in their relationships. And this was a turning point for Brandon. He was watching relationship after relationship get destroyed by Jodi. And it was then that he realized he no longer wanted to be a part of this, a part of her, a part of anything that she stood for. However, Jodi had created such a large, successful network in the community that he had friends, families, and neighbors going to her. And knowing how destructive she could be, he felt that he needed to kind of keep tabs on the situation at hand. So he stayed for a bit.
He became like counter intel, honestly.
Literally.
Yeah.
He was like, I got to know what the fuck's going on. Like, my mom is going to her.
Right.
You know, like,
and honestly, she could like destroy him, like get him excommunicated from the church, the community, everything. Get his like licenses and shit revoked.
Yeah. It was a year later when Jodi opened up Connections, and it was more than one-on-one sessions now. Jodi was able to switch from that one-on-one to group sessions, charging sometimes 20 people at a time to come and see her.
That's crazy.
And from there, by exploiting Mormon anxiety, her following was rapidly growing. And it was no longer even just 20 people, but now conferences with upwards of a couple hundred people grouping together, paying Jodi just to hear what she has to say. People that were desperate to become pure and sinless, to become the perfect Mormon, were going to Jodi. When referencing the community that Jodi built, Brandon says in the documentary, it was like, quote, it was like a church within a church, and Jodi was the prophet. Ruby's best friend, Paige Hanna, was a Connections board member, and I think we talked about Paige too.
Coach, yeah, we talked about her a lot because she was the one. We'll talk about her a little bit more too.
And when describing the way her and other members of Connections saw Jodi, she said that, quote, Jodi became their savior. She was my God, and it was to her you were looking for forgiveness and redemption. Men and women were trusting Jodi with private information about their lives that she would then turn around and discuss this with the entirety of the group solely, truly, to turn everyone against the men in that relationship. Like if it was pivotal information that like a married couple would go to their counselor about, Jodi would take that,
weaponize it
to the church, to locals, to whoever the fuck she wanted to weaponize to get the men out of the picture. Everybody knew everyone's business. And this wasn't the first time that some members started realizing that they were, one, losing all rights to privacy, and two, being exploited.
And exploitation is probably one of the first things that Jodi and Ruby realized that they had in common. If you'll think back to part one of this case, we discussed how when they started 8 Passengers in 2015, everything was very natural and not forced. And that was from the mouth of Chad and Sherry. Like, it was truly just videoing their lives. But once they got that first paycheck from that viral baby crawls out of her own crib video and that LLC was formed, all of that changed. Like we said in part one, the children were now employees and Ruby was the CEO. Everything, the good and the bad, was being filmed, and then it would be cut and edited after the fact to make it look like this joyful, happy family. But here's the thing. Ruby kept all of that B-roll, which was then handed over to the Hulu team for this documentary and also the police as evidence in this case. And it was incredibly disturbing, to put it lightly. Ruby would film and film and film until she got the perfect shot, scolding her children, telling them to fake it because this was their job between takes. Like, there's literally this one part that this was one that I've thought about probably every day since the first time I saw it in that Hulu documentary. And they're like at Universal or something and they're outside and the kids are like so excited, being crazy. And so they're not paying attention to what it was they needed to say in this one clip. Both Kevin and Ruby, but mainly Ruby, are like, get it together. This is your job. We are here to work. And it's like, you're literally at Universal.
Right. Like,
Get a grip.
get a fucking grip, and also like just vlog.
Just
hold
vlog
the
it.
camera
Just
up.
shut the hell up and vlog it. It's gonna be better
Like, they
anyway.
don't have to look there all at the same time and do the
No.
same fucking face at this. Like,
No, just film them having fun. That's the point of this shit. Anyways,
they're making you the money. You could reward them.
you can literally just shut the hell up. Like, that's it. Even their neighbors at the old and the new house, which at this point in time, I'm still talking about the old house, but we'll get to the new house, were angry with her constant filming because she would literally be filming them, such as the neighbors, their kids, and their homes, never once asking for permission, not blurring out faces, not blurring out addresses, nothing. They were even more so appalled, though, about how she did this to her own children, too, giving examples such as videos where she would give out their personal information, like medical drama, medical history, talk about them going through puberty, their struggles in school, and so on. And she would do all of this to align with brand deals. On top of just exposing her children. In fact, all of the neighbors actually hated Ruby. They didn't mind the kids. They loved the kids. All their kids went to schools together and church together. And they didn't mind Kevin either. Like, he was cool. But Ruby, quote, she wasn't friendly. She would never say hello. She would never host parties. She would never engage with them. It was always her and that fucking camera directing her family on what to do and how to act at all times. Which is when Ruby and everyone began noticing that the children were, quote, losing their light, not knowing that behind closed doors, the reason for this was because they were actually being physically, verbally, and emotionally abused. And this is not alleged. It is clearly shown in that B-roll. And it seems to be only getting worse and worse starting in 2017, 2018. So like there have been little bits and bots, like just classic, like losing your shit on your kids turned into like craziness, like that Universal situation, then like targeting the kids and saying stuff like that. Sherry said that their entire lives revolved around Ruby's YouTube. The house had to always be spotless and camera ready, and literally Ruby forced the family to go around to every light in the house, lamps too, and change them from like typical warm toned house lights, because who wants to have LEDs in your face at your house where you're supposed to be relaxed, to fluorescent white light bulbs so that the videos would look better.
I couldn't
We
imagine.
literally, we do this as our job, and we refuse to have a white light in this place.
Right.
Our brightest
These-
lights are still
and they
warm.
still hurt our eyes.
Yeah, they're warm and they're still killing us. Like, me and Morgan, we've had people tell us, like, you need to do white light. No,
we can't.
We literally can't. We'll
I'll have
sit
a
here and have
migraine,
migraines.
I'll be miserable.
We can't do it. Now, in the B-roll, never seen before footage that is shown on that documentary, you see Ruby filming in the kitchen of the old house with some of the younger kids. And it looks like it's about mid-afternoon, so it's really only her and the small kids at home because, like, obviously Kevin's at work and the older kids are at school. And the kids are, like, sitting up at the kitchen counter and eating, like, cheese dip and tortilla chips, and some of them are sitting on the counter, others are like kind of running around, and Ruby screams out, hold on, what was that look for?" Screaming at one of her young daughters. And the little girl responds in this like super sweet but like clearly scared voice, and she said, "Sorry, I just got nervous. I just get nervous." Ruby responds, look. She takes a breath and she says, "Just be yourself," you know, kind of lightening it, seeing that she was getting out of hand, then pulls it back in, to which the little girl says, "That is myself." As any child should say, you know, because she is being herself. You do get nervous, and that's okay, kids. And Ruby pauses, and instead of continuing on that breath that she took, she literally changes her tone to this evil, disgusted, blunt voice and says, "Well, then change it." And that's not me exaggerating. That's literally how
On
it sounds. They show another instance that looked to have taken place around Christmas of 2018, and they're filming them putting up the family tree. And in the video, it's a teenage Sherry kind of working hard, bending over to put this tree together, and behind her is Chad. He's a young teen, almost maybe a preteen, but I think he is probably like just, 13 or 14 at this point. definitely probably, I would say the most he was is 13.
Yeah.
He's sitting on the stairs behind her, and he looks exhausted, over it, upset. He's staring out into space.
My brothers hated decorating for Christmas.
Like,
it was a me, Marley, and Mom thing.
Right, and he's got gel in his hair with his Christmas pajamas on. Like, I would be livid too.
That's the best that you're going to get out
That's
of
the
him.
best you're going to get. So Ruby says, Chad, I've asked you for one good night where it's enjoyable to be with you. Take that look off your face and look happy to be with us. And in typical teenage boy fashion, he says, but I'm not. And Ruby says, okay, you know what then? And the camera like swings down to the ground and goes black. Sherry and Chad talk in the Hulu documentary about how badly Chad would get beaten by his mother at this point in time, with Sherry saying that there were multiple occasions that she would have to go take care of him after his beatings and, you know, like patch up his bloody noses and stuff. That's how bad it was.
Sick.
And like Chad's like, yeah, she would take the belt, she would take my pants off, she'd beat me with the belt, but like clearly it's more than that. Like it's not the belt on the ass, it's the belt wherever the belt hits.
Right.
And I've been beaten by a belt before, but never to the point that I'm ever bleeding.
Right.
Ever. Because that's too far. Sherry even details one occasion where Chad had been beaten so severely that there was blood splattered all over the walls that he and Sherry had to clean up together. Obviously, this was around the same time that Chad begins acting out at home and then at school, getting him expelled in May of 2019 and going through that failed wilderness therapy program like Jesse had gone through, which led Ruby to Jodi through her best friend Paige, which again, Morgan talked about earlier and we talked about a lot in part 1. And I give you this timeline to show you that Ruby was already abusive and a bad person before she met Jodi. That's not me standing up for Jodi in any way, shape, or form, because I truly would never.
Jodi was a bad person before she met Ruby.
Exactly. It's just me giving you the truth of the situation. So we see that these two horrible women get together and just escalate by feeding off of one another's delusions at that point. Now, I know we discussed the process of the Frankies like linking up with Jodi in part 1. However, that was from the point of view of being in front of the lens or Ruby and Jodi and the way that they spun it. So let's discuss the truth of it all from the outside point of view, meaning the family and the kids. Starting off with that first Connections Love versus Lust workshop that Ruby and Kevin went to in October of 2019. Kevin says in the Hulu documentary that he was just shocked when he looked around the room to see that all of these women, including his wife Ruby, were just like laser focused and clenching onto every single word that came out of Jodi's mouth. He then discussed how he actually, in the middle of this workshop, turned to Ruby and said, quote, "This feels like a man-hating club. Like this is a cult," end quote, because of just how uncomfortable Jodi made him feel. Paige then says that she vividly remembered Kevin actually saying this to her too about the cult and the man-hating club, and how she remembers thinking immediately to herself after he said this, still under Jodi's spell, quote, "This is a good thing and this can help you and you're just being too stubborn." And the only reason Kevin, according to him, even got on board was because of Ruby sitting him down after they went to this workshop and telling him that, like, I'm worried about our marriage and our connections dwindling. I think it's causing Chad's behavioral issues. So she wanted him to join the men's club with Jodi and Connections or whatever it was called so that they could better their marriage and thus help their son better together, which, like any good dad, and I said this in part 1, or husband would do, he immediately is like, okay, well, if you think this is going to help our marriage and this is going to help our son with his behavioral issues, like, I'll do it. Like, right. I'll go to this once a week
and also,
meeting.
Kevin was like we said in part 1, was doing everything in his power to be Ruby's perfect person.
Yeah, to
that
fit this mold.
Chart.
He had been doing it since he was 21 and she was 18. Like, this goes back years, and he's always...
So if Ruby wants to do something...
Kevin's doing it.
Kevin's doing it.
It's not him being a good person. It's him being like, I want to be the knight in shining armor for her.
Yeah.
So, you know, we talk about that first men's group meeting that he goes on to with the Connections, and it's got like 15 to 20 other guys on there, and it's a Zoom meeting. All their cameras are on, and then Jodi hops on, and immediately she's like, all right, who wants to get us started? And just like we talked about in part one of the men's like, yeah, I'll check in. And at this point, this guy's like listing off all of these things that he's like relapsing on and like his struggles that he's been going through. And Kevin realizes like, oh shit, this is an addiction support group, not for like just anything, but specifically pornography. With his first impression being just how viciously Jodi was attacking this man who had just confessed all of his sins to her and like his relapse to her as his therapist, and he's distraught and he's broken and he's bringing this to the group in what should have been really a one-on-one session, but instead in front of all these random other men and God and everybody, he's just sitting there being shamed by Jodi. According to Kevin's interview, she was saying things like, how long are you going to keep choosing this? Do you realize you're losing your family? And just like belittling him and publicly shaming the poor guy. Like literally how I envision this in my head is she wants everyone in the group to be like, shame, shame,
yeah,
in front of this guy. And he says like, this guy's like sobbing on there, like gagging, he's crying so hard, like so fucking upsetting. Kevin was disgusted by this first impression he had with Jodi in this men's group. However, she then takes this shame game with this guy and says, look at Kevin. He makes good choices every day that are responsible, and he stands up and he's a man. And immediately, this little insecure Kevin, his ego's boosted.
Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, at the time of this men's group, or this is the first men's group.
The first men's group.
Ruby was there with him, right?
No, she wasn't in the room.
Okay.
Yeah, she wasn't.
There
in the
were
room.
a couple men's groups.
There
where
were many.
They were...
She was like sitting behind the camera listening to everything.
Okay. So this was alone.
But Jodi would like tell Ruby what she was saying. So, and he would come out like obviously like beaming and be like, oh my God, this is what Jodi said about me. And she's like, oh, that's my guy. Like, you know, just so happy and turned on. Like, this shit's crazy.
Yeah.
And this immediately boosts little insecure Kevin's ego. So he keeps going back to this men's group, not because he needed any help of any sort or because he believed in this shaming tactic as a way to help these men at first, but instead because he loved the praise that Jodi was giving him. And it seemed like he was the only man in the world that Jodi approved of. And according to her past clients, yeah. And like what Brandon was saying, fuck yeah. At this point, it seems like Kevin was the only man in the entire world other than God
that was perfect.
That was perfect. Like the perfect Joseph
There was
Smith
no
of a Mormon.
distortion in Kevin.
No, he was a stand-up guy.
And here's a perfect example of that. Once Jodi was arrested, more and more clients began coming forward. According to KUTV, when Jodi and Ruby's case went public, their accounts on Facebook and Instagram were still active. And on those accounts were hundreds of comments that started pouring through about people saying the program caused harm in their personal life. And this is probably just the beginning. Over time, I expect more and more clients are going to be coming forward with their stories of Jodi's misconduct as the therapist. One of these people was Trey Warner, who said that Jodi would regularly use shaming tactics, shame, among clients looking for marital advice. He said that she was an expert in making people believe that they were dangerous to be around. She would convince men that impure thoughts made them dangerous. And in some cases, Trey alleges that husbands were separated from their families for so long by Jodi's advice that they were considering suicide. Quote, they would feel so awful because they didn't follow through with what the goal was or didn't follow the boundaries, that they felt so sick and like such a failure that just felt like they shouldn't be here anymore, he said. And that's the same amount of pressure that Chad felt from Jodi to, quote, get right after his first meeting with her.
So now both Ruby and Kevin are obsessed with Jodi, not knowing the truth of her past. And even if they did, they honestly wouldn't have cared. And we will come to see that they literally didn't. And they decide to begin Chad's one-on-one sessions with Jodi. Chad describes his first meeting with her in the documentary, and it is dark. You know, in hindsight's 2020, but like it's dark.
Yeah.
Basically, he is actually really excited for this first appointment because he kind of feels like he can push through this with a smile on his face and like kind of bullshit his way through it, and it'll just get his mom off of his back. So Chad, Kevin, and Ruby all go up into like Ruby and Kevin's bedroom, the primary bedroom of the house, with a laptop, and they hop on this first one-on-one meeting with Jodi. And one of the first things that Jodi says to Chad is, "Are you ready to start living an honest, responsible, and humble lifestyle?" To which Chad says with like this big smile on his face, "Absolutely, yeah, let's get this started. I'm so ready to start living a responsible life." And immediately Jodi drops a smile from her face and says, "You're lying to me, Chad." Chad says that his face just dropped. He gets angry. He goes silent, and he looks over to his mom in like the Zoom recording little video, who is grinning with this like evil smile on her face at Kevin. And he realizes right then and there, and especially after the military boarding school threat, that he was going to have to bend to Jodi's will if he wanted to survive. Meanwhile, Ruby and Kevin are rising in the ranks of connections, and actually it was pretty good for a little bit. That wasn't a lie when we talked about it in part 1. Like, all of the kids felt like life was just better. Kevin and Ruby were back in that honeymoon phase. You know, Kevin's working out. He's kissing her on the neck in the videos. Like, he's feeling like a hot shot. She's feeling like, I got my knight in shining armor. I'm sure they're fucking getting it on.
On top of the world.
On top of the world. Chad says in the documentary that Ruby really actually like stopped screaming and freaking the fuck out on them. The physical punishment dwindled to pretty much nothing. And instead it was just things were getting taken away for longer periods of time, but that was it. Sherry even says, and this is a direct quote from the documentary, "All of the anger and early beginnings of abuse stopped once Ruby and Kevin started working closely with Jodi, with her and her mom's relationship being the best it had ever been." However, as Kevin and Ruby are becoming coaches and Judy's right-hand people in Connections, everyone else within Connections is actually getting like pretty annoyed. Specifically Paige, her bestie, who even recommended Jodi to them and was a coach for Connections. She was so thrown off because the Frankies didn't have to, quote, put in the work like she and the other coaches had to, saying that it was evident to everyone that Jodi was, quote, more interested in having Ruby and Kevin's influence in their audience than their understanding and comprehension. It was a money game for Jodi, and that was becoming more and more clear to even some of Jodi's most loyal followers. I said it right this time, guys.
Loyal
followers. But that didn't matter to the Frankies because to them, Jodi had healed their family and they would follow her to the ends of the earth, which leads us to late May of 2020 when Ruby posts that 8 passengers vlog where they discuss Chad's bed being taken away. And they get canceled. The change.org petition goes out and they are losing followers, brand deals, and money at a rapid rate. It all starts falling apart so quickly, and that amazing home life that they had had for the last 6 months just implodes on itself. The kids say that little by little, Ruby began going back to her old ways, but this time with the reinforcement of religion. This house was no longer light, happy, or fun. It was fire and brimstone. Only getting worse, with Ruby doubling down on her punishment and parenting style publicly. And all of this positive reinforcement from Jodi and the still, I'm going to call the people that weren't getting turned off, the Connections cult. Thus the birth of Moms of Truth. This delusion got deeper and deeper with quarantine and the honest belief that the world was ending and the second coming was on its way. With Kevin even saying in the documentary that they were convinced they were destined to be a part of something, quote, earth-shifting as a part of God's work. They even talked about how, quote, it was just around the corner and how they were excited about it because the world was ending and everyone else was going to burn, but not them. They were on the right side of it. And that is a direct quote. They truly believed that Jodi was called by God and was a representative of God and had empowered Ruby through the channel to do God's will and work on earth. Ruby and Jodi only got closer as they prepared together for this doomsday event and shared their worries that the devil was attacking them, trying to stop them from doing this God's work. Which is why Ruby and Kevin wasted no time when they got that frantic call from Jodi in May of 2021.
But it actually started in March of 2021 when Jodi began hinting towards her inner circle that something odd was going on in her house. Specifically, that she believed she was being tormented and haunted by hooded, demonic shadow figures every night that would surround her bed because, quote, Satan had it out for her. It was 2 months later when the Frankies received an SOS call for help from Jodi in her Ivan's home. And Ruby believed that she could help. So Kevin and Ruby, they drive out to Jodi's, and this would actually be Kevin's first time laying eyes on Jodi's home. I'm unsure about Ruby. I don't think they stated if she had been there before.
I know it was Chad who was there and Kevin's first time. And I think there was one other kid there, at least one other kid there with them in addition to Chad. But Chad and Kevin talked about in the documentary that this was their first time going to her house and they were just like in awe.
Yeah, because they're like, damn, how much am I paying her?
No, literally.
And when they arrived there, Jodi's LDS bishop was also there, blessing her house. While there, Kevin Franke stated that there were some unexplainable events that took place, so unnatural that he and they truly believed they were in the presence of Satan. For example, while Jodi was giving him a tour, they heard a loud crash come from the basement. However, when they went down there, it was empty. There was nothing there that could have produced a crashing sound and no evidence of any object breaking. I bet it came from the
dungeon safe room.
Probably had another kid in there or somebody. In that same visit, high up on a window, Kevin noticed a handprint. He said that if he were to measure his hand up against this handprint, the fingers would be an extra like 4 to 5 inches longer than the average human hand. It was unnatural. In an interview with NBC News, Kevin stated that plates in the kitchen, which he didn't talk about this in the documentary, I found interesting. He stated that plates in the kitchen were flying off by themselves, quote, like full speed, smashing on the walls and falling to the floor by themselves. While the bishop was doing everything in his power to bless Jodi and the home, he came to the conclusion that this was just too much. He couldn't keep doing this and that they needed to look into other options. This is when Ruby suggests that Jodi comes to their house where she would be able to heal alongside their help.
Can I interlude here for a second?
Please.
I'm choking. So in the Hulu documentary, he's like, I even have a picture of the handprint on the window. He shows this. I'm like, a bird flew into the window.
Right.
It's sorry.
A smudge.
I'm the biggest believer in
the
crazy
interviewer's
shit.
like,
Wow.
The interviewer's like, do you have a picture of his hand? He's like, yeah. And he's like, do you know anything else that could explain that smudge? And he was like, it was unnatural.
And you can tell the interviewer's like, oh.
Yeah, they're like,
Okay.
oh, okay, got it.
Gotcha. Because
I will say, though, the area and how desolate that neighborhood is really gives S-dubs.
It's S-dub energy 100%. And it's also right beside the reservation where we've had creepy accounts from about S-dubs.
Yeah, interesting.
So, yeah.
So Jodi packs a bag and she moves in with the Frankies. Kevin he said he was reluctant to this move, but we all knew at this time that he was kind of team Jodi.
Yeah, he talks about things in hindsight a lot in the documentary. Like a perfect example of him kind of going back and forth is like he's anti-Jodi the majority of the time, and then like when talking about that handprint and stuff, he still fully believes it. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't. Yeah,
I don't know.
It's hard, but I mean, when someone's been brainwashed, I really do think
he's finding like some truth in some things, and then
and we talk about this a lot too. Like he doesn't say this explicitly, and
when you also learn about what Jesse said about the isolation manipulation,
he's being manipulated, and he's being completely manipulated and brainwashed by these women, but. He talks about how he's insecure and how he'll fit into any mold, but you can kind of see that he's not a very strong-minded person. Yes. That's the nicest way I could put it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that without calling him weak.
Yeah. But
okay.
The shoe fits.
So Kevin said that he was kind of reluctant to this move, having Jodi in the house. But when Ruby said to him, quote, this is the second coming. This is God returning to the earth because she is chosen by God. Jodi plays such an important part in this. Ruby and Jodi were convinced that it was Satan who was attacking her because she was the chosen one. Kevin said that almost immediately with Jodi showing up at the house, the weirdest things started happening. Lights were turning on and off. It sounded like people were walking in the walls. quote, like footprints going up walls and across the ceiling. Things were floating around. Kevin would find Jodi in these possessed trances where she would breathe real heavily, grunt, punch herself in the chest, and start speaking in other voices, demonic voices. Caught on camera in the Hulu documentary, we see Jodi say things like, "She's mine.
Literally
She
in Morgan's
knows
demonic voice.
I own her. She's mine. She knows I own her."
She's mine.
Part of me thinks that they're actually, Jodi's saying that about Ruby.
Yes.
Like, I don't think it's a demon saying like, "Jodi's mine, I own her." I think it's Jodi being like, "Ruby, she's mine, I own her."
Like towards Kevin.
Yeah, that's like the vibe I got.
And then like the other half of
And
me.
like she knows, like Ruby knows.
Ruby knows that she's mine. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Actually, I'm going to stop what I'm going to say right now, and I'm going to make a note at the end for us to talk about what I want to say.
Okay.
I'm going to scroll down there while you're up here.
And pretty quickly, Kevin Franke became the resident exorcist. Ruby was convinced more than ever that Jodi was being spiritually attacked prior to the second coming, and that it was her and Kevin's godly duty to help Jodi overcome this. Kevin began casting evil spirits out of Jodi, exorcising them. He would place his hands on her head, and he would command the demons to leave by stating every name of Jesus Christ that he could think of. And Jodi would thrash, she would hiss, she would growl like she was being hurt in response to these holy names that Kevin was reciting. This went on for weeks, Kevin as the exorcist, but nothing was helping. Ruby began leaving her bedroom in the middle of the night, going into Jodi, Sherry's room, and checking on her. And according to Jodi, this is when the possessions were the worst. And this set off a response in Ruby's hero complex. She thought, okay, well, if that's when the possessions are the worst in the middle of the night, like, it wouldn't be right for me to sleep peacefully with my husband in my bed while my best friend is getting these demonic attacks all throughout the night.
No.
Like, I need to be there to protect her. What kind of fucking friend would I be if I let Taylor go through demonic possessions at night all alone while I slept peacefully in bed with Aaron?
Like if you haven't listened to the Patreon AI story,
no, yes,
Morgan would
exactly.
AI Morgan would never. Even
would
AI knows
never.
that Morgan would never.
AI even knows. And so in response to this, Ruby's hero complex sets off and she starts sleeping with Jodi.
This is the real turning point for the Franke family and their relationship with Jodi, as well as their relationship with Ruby, their mother and wife. Even though Jodi was still possessed, she was still hosting these Connections classroom meetings, and Kevin was still attending them. However, once Ruby started sleeping in the same bed as Jodi, Jodi's attitude towards Kevin begins to change. He is no longer the alpha male of the group. He is no longer the only man that she likes on this planet. She begins publicly calling him out and shaming him from the upstairs bedroom. Oh, I was like, something's over there. From the upstairs bedroom of his own home.
I'd be like, get the fuck out.
Oh, I would have busted the door down, telling him, quote, "You are acting entitled. You need to decide if you are going to live in truth or not." The other men in the group even started to notice that Jodi felt like Kevin was a bad guy. It was coming off as if Jodi was hosting the men's group specifically to demoralize Kevin. And when those laptops closed and the group went offline, things were not any better. R and E, who are the two youngest that would later be found in those horrific conditions by police, were now acting out towards their mother, Ruby, and specifically Jodi, which is when Christmas of 2021 comes around and those two youngest kids get no gifts from Santa as their punishment, which eventually gets put out on the YouTube channel, and that was the tipping point that got 8 passengers banned completely. But before that, let's talk about, because we've already talked about that in part 1, so I'm not going to go back in depth. But before that happened, let's actually talk about what was going on behind the lens in the home during that Christmas break of 2021. Sherry was visiting home from college. Mind you, she's at BYU in, I think, Salt Lake City, right? Yeah, at Salt Lake City. And she comes home from college because obviously, like, Christmas, everything shuts down. And she said that the energy in the home was just dark. Like there was, quote, "a physical heaviness in the home." And that's a direct quote from Sherry. It looked and felt like Ruby and Jodi were the only ones having fun. They were always snuggled up beside each other, laughing, chatting, whispering to each other, chattling and giggling together. And it was almost like everyone, including Kevin, was like interrupting something when they were in the room with them.
Like when you're like having fun with your girlfriend and like someone walks in and you're like, oh, yeah.
Like literally when it's a girls' night and one of the husbands were like, get up.
Right.
We all just shut down and we're like, can we help you? Like,
but imagine that every day from your mother.
From your wife.
Yeah.
Every day with this woman living in your home. That's your therapist, mind you.
Who's still having meetings and is shaming you.
In
your own
and
home.
You're having to go down to Christmas.
But then at night is like this.
Literally.
She's mine.
She's mine.
The fuck was going on in that house?
And he's sleeping by himself in the primary bedroom of his home, having no connection with his wife.
While his wife has massage oils.
Literally.
What are you massaging the demons out of her titties?
No, can't.
I don't get it.
Can't. Okay, so they're chatting, they're giggling, whatever. Everyone's intruding on their little situation going on here. And Sherry even recalls having to go into her old room, which is now Jodi's room, to get something during this Christmas break of 2021. And she had not gone back in her room since Jodi had moved in, and she had moved out over 6 months earlier, because while visiting home on this break, she was forced to sleep in her sister's room. And I'm not saying like one sister's room, like two sisters in that room, so now 3. She opens up the door and immediately she has this like dark feeling from the room. And that's a quote. And she says that she looks around and that there are candles all over the room and massage oils on the like bedside table and the desk. She immediately feels uncomfortable, but at the time she like could not put her finger on exactly why she felt this way. She then says in the documentary, quote, "So at that moment, I kind of figured something was going on." So the interviewer stops her and is like, were they lovers? Just point blank. And Sherry...
Everyone's asking. Everyone's thinking.
That's what everyone wants to know, the hot question. And Sherry confesses that in her opinion, she did believe that they were lovers, with Kevin even saying that he didn't know the extent of their, quote, interactions.
Well, you're either holding a seance with your candles...
and massaging each other's demons out of their titties.
Or you're sleeping with your best friend to exercise the demons out. Like, I make
Morgan,
it make sense.
There's just like no time in our lives that I would call you to come sleep with me in my bed when I'm being exercised by demons oils. And be like, for the love of God, will you please go get the candles and the massage oils?
I feel them in my titties. I need them out.
Will you please go get those for me? Like, will you please go grab those? But Kevin believed that it was much more than a friendship, a sisterhood, and that it was uncomfortably intimate. And that's a quote. Okay. It was clear to Kevin and everyone at this point that Jodi wanted Ruby all to herself. She's mine.
She knows.
She knows it.
I own her.
Which goes back to that client that came forward, and even to last week with Jodi's preachings on distortion that Morgan discussed, where Jodi would isolate people because separation and isolation meant that she had more control over them. And several people and clients were damaged by Jodi. At this point, Kevin was slowly seeing these red flags from Jodi again. And even though he wasn't outwardly admitting it, or maybe never even has, like he didn't even do it in the documentary, it was probably these instances that made him think back to the warning that his own daughter Sherry had given him back in May of 2021, which you guys are only learning about for the first time because we never mentioned it. So remember in part 1 when we talked about how Sherry got the call that Jodi was moving in, so she had to be out of her room by the time they got there, in that 4-hour drive it was taking them to get from Ivans to Springville? Well, she did as she was instructed, but she felt like something was odd from the start, especially after her parents and Jodi sat her and all the other children down and explained to them that this had to be a big secret that Jodi was moving in because she could get in serious trouble considering that they were technically her clients. And this made Sherry more and more curious about who Jodi really was. So naturally, as any 18-year-old sleuth would, she gets on her computer after Jodi moves in and she looks up Jodi because she had no idea who really this woman was that was living with her family. So in oldest sister typical shit, like she's like, let me get a fucking Google in here.
Give me on Ben Verified.
And
quick.
what she finds literally blows her mind. She immediately takes the results of this Google search down to her parents, who immediately blow her off, not even giving her the time of day to explain what she had found and say, look, Jodi said this would happen, that people would be out there
targeting her, attacking her,
trying to put her name down.
It's Satan's work.
Exactly.
It only took a quick Google search for this to pop up. Pre-med student at BYU, Adam S., was sent to Jodi Hildebrandt by his bishop, who recommended marriage counseling with his, at the time, wife. I'm not going to say Adam's last name, even though he has gone public with this information, but because most sources have him listed as John Doe and his wife Jane Doe, we'll just go with Adam. Adam was recently married and had just had a child. Before connections, when Jodi was doing one-on-one therapy, she violated privacy and patient confidentiality in 2008 with her clients, Adam and his wife. Her license was placed on probation for 18 months due to unprofessional conduct in 2012, peak connections time, and reinstated in 2013, which is interesting in itself, how she was able to still have such a positive reputation and knowingly work with a suspended license. Nonetheless, this is why she was placed on probation. This document is from KUTV, and I'm changing the words respondent to Jodi just to help it flow a little bit better. John and Jane Doe are the couple that we reference, but I'm keeping their names as John and Jane Doe. On or about April 10th, 2008, Jodi began a clinical relationship providing mental health therapy to a married couple, hereinafter referred to as John and Jane Doe. John Doe and Jane Doe are now divorced. Between April 2008 and March 2010, on multiple occasions in the state of Utah, Jodi, without having received signed authorizations, discussed sensitive private information about John and Jane Doe with the clergy, the church, of John and Jane, and 2 other mental health therapists. On or about March 11th, 2009, Jodi, without having received signed authorization or any other type of permission from John Doe, disclosed sensitive confidential information about him, including a medical diagnosis with administrators at a university located in Utah, which we now know was BYU. The disclosure of the information was detrimental to John Doe and not in his best interests. Between about November 2009 and about March 2010, while Jodi was providing mental health therapy to Jane Doe, Jodi permitted Jane Doe, who was then a mental health therapy student, to perform a clinical practicum at the clinic owned by Jodi. Jodi determined that this arrangement would be beneficial to Jane Doe due to the fact that Jane Doe had attended therapy groups and community support groups at the facility, that Jane Doe was comfortable at the facility, and Jane Doe was familiar with the issues of clients. How would a client be familiar with issues of other clients?
No, that's the problem here.
That's the problem. Jodi failed to document the informed consent, benefits, and risk of such a relationship in that patient's chart. The document says that Jodi admits that her conduct described above is unprofessional conduct as defined in Utah code. And that's when her license was suspended for 18 months. Now, Adam did come forward. Whatever she told BYU, he got kicked out of school.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Kicked out of the church, lost his wife, kicked out of the school.
And I do want to say that, like, in the Hulu documentary, when Kevin talks about this situation where Sherry had found this information and tried to go to Ruby and Kevin and say, like, hey, I don't even know if she still has her license. This is what's going on. Like, you guys need to know who this woman is. And, like, also she had found, like, reviews and stuff and, like, Facebook posts talking shit about Jodi.
Yeah.
She goes and she's like, I found this stuff about Jodi. I'm really worried about this woman. Like, we don't really know who she is. She's been lying to us. And before she can even finish, Ruby and Kevin are like, she's already warned us about this, because preemptively, this is insane. Jodi had told them that Adam, and they don't say it explicitly in the Hulu documentary, but now, like, putting 2 and 2 together, we can know that it was Adam. She's like, this guy's been after me for years. He is of the devil, and he is trying to hurt me because I proved his distortion and and his wife was free. She breaks apart this fucking marriage, this brand new marriage when they just
Wrecks
had a
this
kid, wrecks these kids' lives, and is telling everyone in her inner circle is like, yeah, this guy, he came after me because I proved his distortion and like set his wife free and shit. So they already are prepared when Sherry comes to them with this to be like, no.
He was a sinner.
He was a sinner. That's of the devil shit.
You know what is interesting about that whole take though is that she even had the bishop in the church in hand in 2008.
Yes. She's got everyone in her fucking pocket.
Like, that's before Connections even launched, that people were being referred to her through the church.
Yes.
But the only person that knew this information was Sherry. And by July of 2022, she, Kevin, and Chad had all been pushed out of the home by Jodi and Ruby, completely excommunicated. Chad for watching porn, kissing girls, and bringing the devil into their home to attack and possess Jodi, R, and E. Kevin for causing Chad and the kids to act up through his bad leadership, his sins, and their failing marriage. And Sherry for basically telling her mom it's ridiculous that you're kicking Dad and Chad out. Leaving the 4 youngest children, A, J, R, and E, alone with Jodi and Ruby in the Springville house. Or so everyone thought.
And from there, this all goes downhill very quickly. At first, it seems like Ruby was at home with the children for the most part, but as more and more Moms of Truth videos came out on YouTube, it became more and more evident that Ruby was not at home, but the 4 youngest children were alone, causing more and more people to get concerned about their safety, specifically the Frankie Springville neighbors. They stopped seeing the children, and when they would see them, they were no longer the happy and bubbly children that they had been before. Instead, they were, quote, withdrawn and had no joy. One day, one of the neighbors' husbands was outside and saw Ruby in her front yard, which was a rarity at this point. So he took this opportunity to ask her why Kevin and Chad had left, and she said, quote, every marriage should have a separation. Could be a year, could be 5, end quote, which is literally directly from the mouth of Jodi. Meanwhile, a now incredibly depressed Kevin is at his townhome alone and isolated, doing everything that he could to convince Jodi that he was ready to go back to his family and Ruby, continuing to attend those weekly men's group meetings where he's just getting absolutely berated.
I just don't. Why are you still in them?
Why are you still going?
I don't.
Because he's brainwashed, dude.
I feel like I'm victim blaming, and I don't want it to seem like that. It's
just harder with Kevin. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's really hard for me with Kevin. But like you see in the documentary, he is a victim in this too.
Absolutely.
But it's hard because you're like,
I guess it really shows how manipulative that bitch was.
I know, and
how she preyed on the weak-minded.
Yeah. Period. And like that's all that we could say about it, because I have this like internal battle with feeling sorry for Kevin and being like, wake the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know? But he is a victim in this too. And Chad, now alone and isolated in his apartment, again, as a 17-year-old with no communication with anyone in his family, not his dad, not his siblings, not Sherry, not his mom, no one, was only having, his only connection to them was his weekly Tuesday at 3 p.m. one-on-one calls with Jodi, like his dad, trying to prove to her that he was ready to be brought back into his own family. So it's like Jodi's this fucking gatekeeper to the
rest of the
Frankie family. Saying in the documentary, quote, and this is Chad saying, at this point, Jodi had complete control over me because I loved and I trusted her. I wanted to prove to her and my mom that I was changing and getting better. It's so sad to see how brainwashed and manipulated these people were.
On a light note, I'm scrolling TikTok the other day. I sent it to you, and this thing from Chad Frankie pops up. And it's like clickbait of like his mom and Jodi and like some fucked up shit they said on a video. Yeah. I don't know. And he's like, so anyway, that's my trauma. I got some new merch out. It's called Freed. And I was like, oh my God. That was great.
He's like, happy Mother's Day. Like,
happy Mother's Day.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
It was on Mother's Day morning. I was getting ready for church and he sent it to me. That's so funny. We'll post it for you guys on our story so you can see it too, because it's hilarious. Okay. So About a month after all of this going down, so August of 2022, a year before the kids were found, Sherry was a freshman at BYU, and she reaches out to Kevin, her dad, to say that she loves him, misses him, and ask how he's doing. He hearts the message, but very quickly unhearts it. So she responds and is like, what the hell are you doing? Get your head out of your ass, essentially, only to get blocked by her own father, who, by the way, she only refers to as Kevin, and as for her mom, Ruby. In the entire documentary, she says Kevin and Ruby. Like, when she was first, like, being interviewed in that first episode, I was like, wait, that's the oldest daughter. And then I was like, wait, maybe it's not. Maybe it's a neighbor, because she kept calling them Kevin and Ruby.
And Chad still had mom and dad.
Yeah, he was still using mom and dad. So about a month after this, so fast forward to September of 2022, Sherry gets a call from their Springville neighbors that were concerned for the kids, telling her that they hadn't seen Ruby in at least 5 days, and that they knew the kids were at home because they were always looking through the windows of the house, but would not answer the door or come outside when, like, the neighbors would try to get them to. So on September 18th, 2022, Sherry calls the police requesting a welfare check on her siblings, telling police that her 3 younger sisters and youngest brother have been left alone at the home for 5 days while their mother visited with a friend in St. George/Ivans, aka Jodi. She says that she hadn't spoken to her parents because she has been cut off, but she has been talking with the neighbors who were very concerned. So she just wanted an officer to go check on the children and make sure that they had enough food, quote, for an extended period, according to the police reports that were sourced in a Salt Lake City Tribune article.
Because in Utah, that's all they needed.
Again, going back to those child laws. The Frankie's neighbor named Sydney, who is interviewed in the doc, and there's a lot, and I'm going to be giving you their names. There's like Sydney, Kristen, Lisa, and another one. I'll probably get there, but those are the main 3. One of the Frankie's neighbors named Sydney says in the documentary that she was sitting at home when she gets a text from Lisa, the other across the street neighbor, telling her that Sherry had called the police and that the police were outside and they needed more witnesses. So immediately, everyone, all of these women and their husbands, go outside to give their statements to the police, because they were all like texting about this in a group message without Ruby and Kevin, being like, what the hell's going on? But no one could get any of the kids to come to the door and open it. And without a warrant, because the judge wouldn't sign for one, police couldn't force their way into the home to actually verify that the kids were okay in person. So that was that. Meanwhile, as this is going on, all of the husbands in the neighborhood are blowing up Kevin's phone, telling him like, yo, the police are at your house. Is everything okay? Like, where are you at? Like, you need to answer your phone. And he's blocking them. Every time they would call or text, he's blocking them one by one for fucking trying to tell him that the police are at his house where his kids are left alone. Soon after this, DCFS? Mm-hmm. Okay, I always get the letters confused, so if I end up getting them all jumbled up, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Workers began interviewing all of these neighbors, but specifically the couple that lived directly next door to the Frankies. And this is Kristen and her husband. I want to say her husband's name's Matt, but I could be really wrong about that. And they're asking her and her husband, like, what physical signs of abuse have you seen? And she's like, no, I haven't seen any, because she hadn't seen any physical signs of abuse at that point, meaning that there was nothing that they could do because of those child neglect laws or free range child whatever the fuck that Utah has. So the caseworkers just left, just like police. After this, the caseworker called Sherry and profusely apologized, saying that she was actually concerned herself, but there was nothing more that she could do or that anyone could do without more solid evidence. And from that point on, so September of 2022, none of the neighbors ever saw the children outside of that home again. Kristen, again, the next door neighbor who was interviewed and said that she hadn't seen any physical signs of abuse, says in the documentary, quote, "It was at that point I realized I should have lied and told them that the kids were being harmed and that I could see it. And I really, really regret not saying that. I just didn't know." And their face, I'm like getting choked up because their faces, her and her husband's faces in this, they're looking at each other, their lips are quivering, and you can tell that they're just sick. Like,
and this was
their
the one
hearts
with
are
the
shattered.
great relationship with Sherry, right?
Yes.
So their daughter was Sherry's really good friend.
Yes.
And Sherry would come over all the time, and they helped Sherry a lot through getting like excommunicated.
I think you're talking about Teresa and Barry or whatever his
Teresa
name.
and Barry. Okay.
Yeah, no.
So this was not.
This
okay.
was not them.
This is the
they
blonde
lived in
one?
Salt Lake City. This is the brown-headed one that had long brown hair and a jean jacket on. In the
Okay.
interview, her husband had like dark hair, and she was sitting on the left, he was sitting on the right.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's speculated, but not really confirmed, that it was after this instance that the two middle daughters, A and J, were sent to that friend's house where police later found them in 2023, and that R and E were moved down to Ivan's or St. George, you hear people call it both, with Ruby and Jodi, which is where they would be held captive, physically, emotionally, verbally, and mentally abused for the next year of their lives at the hands of their own mother and Jodi. And though we don't know all of the details about what exactly happened in the dungeon of that home, we get a very vivid picture of it from Ruby's journal that investigators found when executing a search warrant of Jodi's house right after their arrest in August of 2023.
Before we get into this, a huge trigger warning for all things child abuse. We will discuss the sentencing and the aftermath here in a bit, but for now, if this is something that you do not want to hear at all, jump ahead. I don't know how long. I'm going to be reading 4 total journal entries. A lot of it is redacted. It's about 65 pages worth. I would say 30 pages are redacted, 35 are not. And then there's redactions throughout all of the journal entries. We could maybe link this in the
Yeah, we could probably link this in
because
the show notes.
it really gives you a grasp of where Ruby's mindset was.
Yeah, and how distorted
Yeah.
or whatever it was she was.
The first full journal entry we have access to, or the first 3 entries, start on July 9th, 2023. It was a Sunday. R turns 12 tomorrow. I never envisioned him being 12 and still pooping and peeing himself. Satanic choices lead one to becoming destitute, even in the most affluential homes.
No, that's signs of abuse.
July 10th, 2023, Monday. It's R's birthday, and he doesn't even know what month it is. E and R have been in so much deviant behavior, they won't control their bodily functions. They are both redacted. Their selfish, sinful lifestyle is being intervened upon. I told R he emulates a snake. He slithers and sneaks around looking for opportunities when no one is watching. Then he scurries. If he wants to emulate the Savior, he need to be 100% obedient with exactness. No wavering, no hiding. R lies. I mean all the time. He is a compulsive liar. I never would have suspected. This entire experience is a shock to my system. When she says experience, it really gets me. It really is like a camp.
Yeah,
that,
like
Jodi's
she's
hosting,
thinking
like
that a
behavioral
wilderness therapy camp.
That she's referring to it as this. I never would have suspected the cold, dead heart R has if I didn't know where to look. She's writing this about her son on his 12th birthday.
This is disgusting.
He has always been able to get what he wants, and now that he can't, he is furious. Whole page is redacted. I told R that he needs God. I invited him to fast and to pray. R is in and out of possession. He is workable and calm for a bit, and then angry and defiant the next. The only consistent thing about R is that he lies. E is better behaved with Jodi. She likes to think that she can still manipulate me. I gave her a pixie haircut. All her long hair is gone. No more distracting with hair.
Oh my God.
R told me he would rather have a glass of water than me as his mother.
Oh my God.
Open
Is
up
she
your
not
fucking
writing
eyes.
this?
She's literally living it and then reliving it. And
She's
is like,
writing it down and she's not thinking, oh my God, it's because my child is fucking emaciated and malnourished.
Yep.
My child that I birthed.
on his birthday.
Oh my God.
July 11th, 2023, Tuesday. So this is 3 days in a row. Big day for evil. E manipulates me. She won't scream when Jodi is around, but with me, she wails. That's because you're her mother and she wants fucking help.
And she's
scared of
terrified.
Jodi.
And she still sees you as her mother.
All night, E screamed, cried, and would hit her head on the tile floor.
Oh baby.
Today, Jodi confronted her, and E admits to putting on a show for her mother. E says she wants to be pitiful. R was told to stand in the sun with his sun hat. He is defiant. And then she will write, like in the journal entries, like as if R, like the conversation they have. So he's told to stand in the sun. No, he says. I tell him a couple more times. R, or should I say his demon, stays in the shade. I push R into the sun. R comes back. I come back with a cactus poker. When I poke his back to get in the sun, R doesn't even flinch. I poke him on the neck. He is in a trance and doesn't appear to feel anything. Jodi taps him on the cheek to wake him up. The devil doesn't like when you get yours subject to a line to truth. R, do you know I love you? Yes, ma'am. R, do you know Joe loves you? Yes, ma'am. R, do you know the Savior loves you? Yes, ma'am. R wants out of his outcomes. After our talk, R stays in the shade. I take my old mop water and I go to R. I show R the water and then I pour the water on R. It's hot outside. Feels good, doesn't it? Yes, ma'am. An hour later, Joe takes R on a little walk to the pool. She talks on how R has love twisted. Joe pushed R into the pool. R swam to the side. Joe pulled him out. Feels good. Refreshing? Yes, ma'am. I went out a couple hours later and asked if he wanted the pool again. Yes, ma'am. Will you let me push you in? R laughed, then tried not to act too excited. R cooled off and went back to his spot. I put my hands on his face. R, have you ever heard someone talk underwater? Yes, ma'am. I know R is in there somewhere. I know deep down under all this anger, you can hear me. It may sound like I'm underwater with you, but hear me. I love you. R got teary. It's probably the first time she said, I love you.
Literally.
Then I put my hand tightly over his nose and mouth. I am coming to you in this water and putting my hands on your nose and mouth. The devil lies and says that I'm hurting you, abusing you. But what am I really doing? You are putting oxygen on me to help me breathe. Yes, that's right. So she was holding him underwater.
Oh my God.
Nose and mouth closed.
And she's waterboarding him.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to give you the perspective that I know we know that R is 12, but E is 9 years old. Her birthday is September 1st. She's about to turn 10. She's 9 years old.
Yeah. And she's crying for her mom.
Literally.
And they said, you're putting on a show. The
You're putting
devil
on a
wants you
show.
to put on a show. This is the last entry, August 27th, 2023. I visited for a week. A visited for a week last week. And she actually doesn't touch much on this, but she says, I picked her up on last Sunday and took her home to Springville on Friday. So she was going to get the other kids, bringing them
back,
visiting.
and forth.
And then part of me is like, so when they went back to the friend's house, because these kids were a little bit older, 12.
Yeah, A just turned 18 like a month ago.
So probably 16, 15 or 16. Did Jodi and Ruby just do, I wonder, like a really good job hiding like where the other two were at that time? Like I wonder if that's what the dungeon was for, because A, as an adult, or not as an adult, but as a teenager,
16-year-old,
would probably go back to a friend's house and be like, I'm worried about my little
this
brother.
friend that it's Ruby's friend that she's staying with. This is someone within the connections cult. They never say who it is. I at first thought it might have been Paige, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because the woman you could see
So
from
to
the body
them,
cam footage.
they're in treatment. Ruby and Jodi probably told this connection member, I have to take Ian
they're
R
possessed.
for treatment. So A visited for a week last week. I picked her up on last Sunday and took her home to Springville on Friday. R spent 22nd through the 25th peeing and pooping. He is out of control.
Oh my God.
Excuse me. He is defiant, abusive, and mean. He refuses to do what he is asked. Just when I think we found a technique that will work, R digs in and fights harder, willing to try anything that would grab his attention. I whipped him with a belt yesterday. E2. She peed all over Jodi's garage floor, screamed at her, and lied to her. She is out of control.
Oh my God.
E seemed to give me her attention after the whipping. She swept the garage with some muscle and mopped it. She did a good job. R increased his defiance. And that was the last entry that Jodi put in. Now, like I said,
That's
there's
disgusting.
probably 20 more pages.
We'll
And then
link
the
it.
other half are redacted.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
And actually, the very last page in the notebook was like, a schedule. It was very interesting. I have no idea what it was about, but it was like,
I want to look at it.
Taking da-da-da, or Tuesday to Wednesday meeting, and then it was like Venmo. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't recognize any of the names. And the very first page also, if you peek at that, I think it was the first
timeline
page. Yeah. Also interesting. It's like meeting and name dropping hardcore.
Jodi, it says 5/20, so May 21st, 2023. Jodi receives blessing from Temple President Steve Kaplan. I'm saying it. 5/22/2023. Ruby, A, J, R, and E come down to Jodi's to help spring clean. 5/28/23. Meet Jeremy.
Jaggy.
I don't know who the hell that is. 6/13/23. And there's like a bunch redacted between May 28th and June 13th. Jodi goes to Salt Lake City to meet with Jeremy, the same guy that she had met with, and Brad Wilcox. 6/30/23. R refuses to do wall sits. He says he is done. 7/1/23. R is to stay outside. Sleep outside, only come in to use the bathroom and shower.
And we redacted like probably 3 or 4 days.
7/14/23. E refuses to work, screams, has hair shaved off. 7/15/23. R runs away around 1:15 a.m. Ruby finds him at 3:14 a.m. Jodi, E, and Jay arrive to Arizona and find property, land. So they're looking to move. That's right, because, okay, we don't talk about this. I kind of mentioned it briefly, like when the police raided the Springville house. But there's this entire part in the documentary where Kevin and Chad realize what the fuck's going on because they go to the Springville house. They get in there. It's all packed up. They're like, oh my God, they're moving. Like Ruby's moving. And Kevin is distraught, beside himself. He realizes he's been lied to. He starts coming out of this like trance that he's been put in by these two psychos. And all the neighbors come over and they're like, we're going to tell you the truth about what happened. So he's like, okay, sit down and tell me everything. And they said it was like hours and hours of him just wailing as they tell him everything.
It is interesting that, because I mean, this is... I can't tell if it's her handwriting or not.
No, I think that is her handwriting. Because
like she's talking about herself in first person.
I guess she's
Ruby.
Because she's losing her fucking mind. Like,
so like she's timelining like this. I don't know, because like that's a summary of, you know, majority of the thing. So scroll down to the last.
The pattern one that's upside down.
Yeah. There's a couple upside down.
Yeah. It says like pattern.
Stood in the rain for 2 hours. Like there's so much.
Oh, wait. Here's page 10. Okay. So these are just the back. No, that's 13. Okay. Page 12. Pattern. Sending evil away in a long time possessed person is not a one and done deal usually. These wicked spirits in E and R have been pals long before this life. How E and R got to come and get a body can only be explained in me advocating to be their mother. Like she's talking about like their soul contracts, bitch.
Yeah. No, it's sick.
It goes on and on, y'all. It's so fucked up. Okay, I'm going to get down to the chart thing.
E is chanting?
Is she just like writing down their symptoms? Note to myself, I never clearly saw the devil and wickedness until recently because I didn't see evil clearly. I didn't combat him.
Oh.
Paddled evil. What?
This one's terrible.
What?
Me, what do you want? R, more different foods in a soft bed. Me, why don't you ask Satan? Do you think Satan will give you these things? R, no. Me, why not? R, because he doesn't have the power. Me, why would you serve a God who has no power to give you your desires? Dumb. R, silent. Double underlined. Blank had another episode with demons. She gives herself to them. She agreed to stop being deceptive with her facial expressions, crying and whining. Whining is the devil's voice, underlined. Whining is always a demon.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's fucking sick.
Oh my God. Okay, I see the Tuesday morning, the Taut, New Jersey.
Right, that
Institute
last page.
of Technology, University of Washington, Dean of the Computing College.
Like, I wonder if that was
one
like
essay for each girl, PDF of curriculum, Venmo, and that's redacted.
Like, I wonder if like somebody was applying for something and they were gonna launch this new thing in Arizona. Like, I have no idea what this was.
San Diego, Taut, New Jersey Institute of Technology. So
Like,
these are
that
just like
sounds like
quick notes that she's taking
of like
in a
people
meeting.
they've interviewed.
Yeah.
Or like something.
Like they're
And then
trying
you-
to start up something. Guys, obviously there's a lot more that we could have gone into, and there's so much more out there. At this point in the episode, which I know about half of this is going to go away, but in the raw recording, we're at 2 hours and 17 minutes. And like everything beyond this is just delusion
we conjured
and
up
abuse.
a total of probably 120 pages of notes between last week, this week, and our like structural notes.
Yes.
We'd write a book if we could, but
Seriously. I mean,
that's what it would take.
and
Is a book.
a lot of this stuff is still like the redacted parts of it is because like these are minors. These are things that happen to minors. So like we can't talk about a lot of it. And we still want to protect these kids. Like this is just so beyond fucked. On August 30th, 2023, the day that R escaped.
3 days after her last journal entry.
The day that R escaped, Ruby, Frankie, and Jodi Hildebrandt were arrested in Ivins, Utah, and 2 days later, they were charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse, which is a felony. Jodi and Ruby were both held without bail. Jodi surrendered her license as a counselor pending resolution of the court case and a disciplinary investigation.
And I do believe that it has not been removed yet. Like she surrendered her license, but like she still holds it.
Oh my God.
I'm pretty sure. Don't take me
like Utah,
grain of
if that's
salt,
the
but-
case, get on it.
Yeah.
Ruby was suspended from YouTube and use of the platform as a whole. On December 18th, 2023, Ruby Franke pled guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. She later pled not guilty to 2 other counts. Ruby agreed to serve a prison sentence and to serve her respective sentences consecutively rather than concurrently. She was expected to testify against Jodi in the upcoming trial, but Jodi separately pled guilty to the 4 counts of felony aggravated child abuse on December 27th, 2 charges being dropped as a part of another plea deal. During the trial, Ruby claimed that she was manipulated by Jodi, but told the judge that she would not argue for a shorter sentence before she stood to thank all the local police officers, doctors, and social workers for being the angels that they were and saving her children from her at a time where she was under the influence of her business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt. So she does this like 180 flip.
Yeah, she does.
She does it.
She's like, Jodi manipulated me.
And it's like, I don't even know that she's actually sorry or actually believes that, or if it like
She put on a show.
She put on a show.
Even in prison. I
like,
think-
but when she's being interviewed, she's still like not talking to anyone, not talking. She gets to her lawyer. She's talking. She comes out in court and she's like, "I'm guilty." And then,
Thank
bitch,
you.
Jodi,
Thank you, everyone, for saving my children.
I just want to thank you for your service. That like, shut up, you bitch.
Yeah.
Shut up. According to ABC News, Jodi and Ruby were both sentenced to up to 30 years in prison on child abuse charges after accepting their plea deals. And at the time, Jodi Hildebrandt's lawyer said that she was not the person she was being portrayed as, but was accepting the consequences for her conduct. She had said one of the reasons she didn't go to the trial was so that the children didn't have to emotionally relive the
No,
experience.
they're acting like
What a good person, Jodi. Everyone give her just...
they both are like,
Oh my
thank God you guys stopped
Thank
us.
God.
Like, I mean, we don't want the kids to go through anything
But you
like that
know
again.
what's crazy is they're giving Edmund Kemper.
Yeah.
Where Edmund Kemper literally was like, someone needs to come arrest me because I'm going to kill again.
Yeah.
And they're like, thank God you got
Thank
me.
God you didn't let us go to Arizona and
Because
meet with
we
these
were gonna
guys
beat
that
the
we
hell
were
out
going
of
to
the rest of these
Venmo
kids,
from the
like-
University of New Jersey.
And University of Washington. However, the women will only serve up to 30 years in prison due to a Utah state law that caps the sentence duration for consecutive penalties. The Utah Board of Pardons and Parole will consider their behavior while incarcerated and determine how much of that time each of them will need to spend behind bars.
I bet they're out in 10.
Oh, yeah, they always do that to women.
They'll be out in 10.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably Ruby before Jodi.
Oh, let me just say something. She's not safe anywhere. I hope she's getting her ass handed to her in prison.
Yeah.
Seriously. A quote from Ruby, according to NPR, is, quote, "I'll never stop crying for hurting your tender souls," she said to her children who were not present at the sentencing hearing. Quote, "My willingness to sacrifice all for you was masterfully manipulated into something very ugly. I took from you all that was soft and safe and good," end quote. Now, as of March 2025, Jodi is calling her plea agreement unlawful. She's like a fucking... She's
Like,
crazy.
wait, actually, can we go back to trial? I didn't mean to do that.
She's like, she says that it's, quote, saying that it was unlawfully induced or not made knowingly and voluntarily with understanding of the nature of the charges and the consequences of the plea. She then filed for a petition for relief on her own behalf as of Monday, March 24th, 2025, writing, quote, I did not know my rights and my attorney did not inform me of them. The petition listed several other claims, including that her counsel was ineffective and the prosecution failed to give adequate notice of the charge. These people,
so we might see Jodi
back in court. And I hope we do. And I hope they take her for all she is.
You didn't like the plea deal? Great. Life.
And the only reason that they dropped those other 2 counts is because she got a plea deal. So like, oh, you don't like the plea deal? Perfect. Here are 6 counts for you on a silver fucking platter.
Because they're already serving 30. Even if they charge them for the other 2 accounts,
it doesn't matter. They can't
go over 30.
And consecutively. These are 6 felonies.
Yeah, and I mean, Ruby, it was a young mother.
Yes.
So she will be out alive. She will live. How old is she? Do we know?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now. Hold on one second.
Jodi's a bit older. I would assume.
I'll tell you how old they both are. Ruby Franke, as of today, is 43 years old.
Oh, so she would be 70.
Old is Jodi Hildebrandt is 55.
She would be 85. Oh yeah, let her serve that.
Let her get her 90-year-old ass walking out. Yeah, stupid bitch.
I'll send her to wilderness.
Now I
want to
go back to what we were talking about with the demonic voices, where she's like, she's mine. I own her. He knows it, or whatever the fuck. It makes me think 2 things. Okay, one side of it is that I really would not be surprised if this bitch was actually possessed. And like,
especially when you,
it maybe not possessed, but like her demonic evil head and brain and actions, and I'm sure she's conjuring shit, like brought forward these hauntings. Like I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
When you convince yourself also so intently that you are God's chosen one for the second coming, and that Satan is after you, you're gonna manifest
Satan's coming after you, babe. Yes.
I don't think you're going to manifest God's chosen one because of your actions.
I think God's like, actually let Satan go get that thing. Like, seriously. Truly.
No,
a fallen angel. That's what the fuck it is.
I think the same thing. And I also think that where they live is very fucking spiritual. I wouldn't doubt it if Jodi's house actually was on haunted grounds and haunted land.
Yo, it's called Hellhole right there. And then it's right beside. We've had literally creepy accounts written in about S-dubs.
And I wouldn't doubt that there was shadow people at the foot of her bed.
No.
I don't doubt it at all. There probably fucking was.
Yeah. But I also want to say this, is that the other half of me was thinking like, there is a possibility that she actually was conjuring up these negative evil spirits. Is that like you were saying, like she's literally saying that because she wants to scare Kevin off so she can fuck his wife.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, and I don't mean to like blow anyone's spot, but this bitch is crazy.
Yeah,
like
crazy before they both were. They're both. They both were obsessed with power and within their own circles, with Jodi getting a power kick out of abusing her family members. And we've never heard from Jodi's children.
No, they don't speak.
Interesting.
Or her ex-husband.
Yeah. And I think I said in part 1, there was rumors that she was actually married like 7 times. But there's like nothing on it. It's very
hush hush.
There was also rumors, and I didn't talk about it, but there was also rumors that she was sexually abused as a child. But there's like, those are just allegations. I don't know who from. I don't know if it was a family member, a brother, a dad. I have no idea.
Well, what I realized that I didn't ever like deep, I guess, like I knew, but I never deeped it until we were reading those journal entries, is it seems like Ruby was in charge of R and Jodi was in charge of E. And I'm really worried about what went on when Jodi was
There's a lot of redactions.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that it's something way worse. Obviously, it's something like absolutely terrible.
Way worse.
To protect the kids, it's not out there. But and I also think that Ruby was like writing to convince herself that, okay, I did this to R today because
he is possessed.
He is a snake. Like I think that, I don't know. Like part of me is like that. Like Ruby was almost like, I have no idea. It's so fucked up and
It's
twisted
so crazy
and sick.
It just, and you saw like when it fell off, like when the bottom fell out, like it literally was fine. Like, oh, we're actually doing really good. We're doing good. Then they get canceled. Jodi moves in. She's isolating Ruby. They kick them all out. And then it's like when you leave kids, 16-year-olds at home alone, and like, we can eat whatever we want. We can throw a fucking X party or whatever the hell it is.
Right.
Like
Project
X, and like just go insane. And they're doing this in like this weird fucked up way where they're convinced that they're a part of the second coming, which like, oh my God.
Now, I will say, because that was when 2020. This
2021, 2020.
This was the belief of a lot of people. Like, this was COVID. This was a lot of people. There was so much going on,
shit going on
in the world.
And we were doing nothing but watching all this shit unfold.
And maybe we did have it, and we don't even know. But half the people are up, and we are not the chosen.
And we are still down here.
We did not go
in
up
purgatory.
with the rapture.
Yeah. And if that's the case, Jodi and Ruby, Jodi and Ruby, look where y'all at.
You're at the bottom of the pit. At least we're at the top.
Oh my God. Their judgment day is about to be insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
And the fact that the kids' lives were so public, and even more so now.
Because like, as much as we redact their names, everyone knows what their names are.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what their faces look like. There's not a good way to protect them. Like, they had that stripped from them.
Whose custody are they in right now? Kevin's?
Kevin.
And Kevin, Chad, and Sherry have all, they communicate. I don't think
Sherry,
Sherry's involved.
Sherry
but
doesn't
I think
fuck with any of them.
that Sherry communicates.
I actually think initially maybe Sherry actually got custody, like guardianship over the kids.
While Kevin was being investigated.
And then once I need to confirm this. Their divorce was finalized March 20th, 2025, when a Utah judge signed the decree approving the terms agreed upon by both parties. Kevin Franke has been awarded full custody of their 4 minor children and sole ownership of their $1.3 million Springville, Utah home. Ruby Franke is currently serving a prison sentence after pleading guilty on 4 counts of aggravated child abuse.
Per Associated Press, 11-year-old E, they said her name, recently provided a statement to lawmakers asking them to protect other child creators from exploitation. Quote, "I'm not saying YouTube is a bad thing. Sometimes it brings us together. But kids deserve to be loved, not used by the ones that are supposed to love them most." And as of April 4th, 2025, so about a month ago, according to the Associated Press, Utah Governor Spencer Cox recently signed a bill into law requiring online creators who make more than $150,000 a year from content featuring children to set aside 15% of those earnings into a trust fund that the kids can access after turning 18. The new law also creates a pathway for children to have posts and videos therein removed.
Okay, no. I think if you make more than $6,000 a month, which is what you get taxed on, you should have to put up at least 10%.
Agreed.
For the children.
Yeah, I could be pulling in $149,000,
and like that, half of that shit could be hidden.
People could be strategically
under the
turning
table
down
shit.
ad deals, get themselves to $149,999 to not put a
trust fund together for the kids.
I mean, it's a step in the right direction.
It's a step in the right, but this poor little girl, she's 11 years old.
And
she's having
pleading.
to go up and testify after all the fucking hell she's gone through at the hands of her mother.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, appalling, and we watched it happen in real time. And I can only imagine the shit that comes out after this.
Oh my God, yeah.
And there's already been people coming forward over the years. That's why a lot of these people are moving to Texas and places where they don't have those child protection laws. Tennessee's one of them too.
Yeah.
Texas, Tennessee.
That's why they're all coming here.
Woo.
Woohoo!
Thank God this chapter is over for us.
I'm
I
over it.
literally can't imagine thinking about it for another day because I have been ill over it.
If I have to hear the voice of Ruby Franke,
Oh my God.
or
Or
Jodi
Jodi
Hildebrandt one more time,
The computer's being thrown out the window.
I'm tossing it.
The phone's being ran over by the car.
I don't want to hear their
I
voices
don't
ever
want
again
to
for
hear
the
them.
rest of my life.
No. I want to cancel my Hulu membership so it
So
doesn't say
gets-
continue
I have
watching.
to now because I'm on.
We need to close it out.
episode 2. I'm gonna need to go to the end of 3 just to get it the fuck off. My
We're just
screen.
gonna click hide this. You can do that, I think.
Yeah.
I will because I cannot
And there's
take
like
it.
6 on Hulu now, like 6 different.
Devil in the Families?
No.
No. Child?
No.
Oh,
Frankie,
different Frankie
Ruby
ones?
Frankie
Yeah.
documentaries.
I don't know how Hulu does that. Like,
Hulu
there's like,
releases a new true crime documentary every day. No,
That's
they
bad.
release so many. Alrighty, guys.
yeah.
We got to go bust out Patreon at 9:30. So love you. Bye.
Oh
So
my
much.
God, I forgot. Okay, love you. Moving on. We'll talk to you on Tuesday for TBB. I have no idea what it is. It's going to be out on time. We're going back to shit's on. Babe, I told you I'm sick, but we're ovulating this week. We look gorgeous. Look at our faces.
Wake up, babe.
We literally
I
look
had
like...
scratches on my face today. From
Literally, she
Jodi.
did. I was like, wait, did you get possessed by Jodi Hildebrandt?
Did Jodi Hildebrandt come through your
She
computer
did
screen?
scratch her 2 big lines on her face. We're like, dude, what the fuck?
It's that hand prank Kevin was talking about.
Ooh, okay.
Love you guys. Bye.
Best of love you guys. Bye.